All right, so I'm excited to have Vladimir Shafranov back on. Wonderful pianist and composer. I'm happy to catch up with you and see what's been going on. I know
Thank you
you're
very much.
preparing for a new record, right? You're preparing for a new album.
Yes, yes, preparing all the time.
And when are you going to record this? Or when did you
Uh,
say it was going to be?
it's going to be on the 2nd and 3rd of June.
Okay, so not long, a few weeks. Yeah, about a
Yeah,
month. And
yeah.
then where are you going to record at?
In Stockholm, it's a new studio. I haven't been there, haven't seen it, but according to my bassist, it's a very fine studio, and the grand piano is he said is the best in Stockholm. So anyway.
So it'll be a Steinway, I'm assuming? Or.
It's Fiasoli.
Oh, okay.
Is it-
All right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah, I haven't. I'm not really familiar with that brand, but you know, as long as everything is working, I'm not picky.
Yeah. So are you going to do a lot of standards? Are you going to do any of your own tunes, or do you know
Uh,
exactly?
yeah, kind of a mixture of things. Standards, jazz standards, some Brazilian tunes, and a couple of originals. This kind of things. I haven't picked. There is a, how shall we say? It's embarrassment of riches. I have so many. I know so many tunes, and there are so many tunes in kind of a passive repertoire. Some of the active repertoire, some of in the passive repertoire. Some of that I was meaning to record. Some tunes I have not really played publicly. So there's still I'm still picking. I have more than enough, but it's
Yeah.
hard to yeah. But it's hard to well, I have still few weeks, so yeah, I need to put it in a definite order and see how it goes. And then when you're in studio and you are with the rhythm section, everything changes. You know, so that's the that's what I've been doing basically.
Yeah. Didn't you travel here recently too?
Yeah, I'm always going out, in and out. There's not much happening here, even though we have now in place a place where they have jazz once in a while. I think they have it maybe even every week, but I'm not following. I don't know who is playing. We have a few amateur bands, but yeah. So I'm not really following, but I've played there a few times. Uh, there is no piano there, so you have to play keyboard. I'm not
Oh
really
yeah.
very much into that. But if they ask me, I'm all for playing with a couple of. They have several singers that are kind of nice to play with. So I've done that a little bit. But it's hard to do a duo or trio with the electric keyboard. So
It's just not the same feel, right?
no, it's just
The
yeah, it's
same
just
sound.
yeah, it's and the sameness of electric instrument. You don't have the colors. Uh, yeah, basically it's in a band. It's okay. You can manage if you have a like a vocalist, or if you have a horns, it could be okay. Depends on the music. Certain music it's suited for the electric Fender Rhodes sound.
Right.
But piano trio. Cheers.
Yes. Cheers. I got my coffee
Piano
too.
trio. You need acoustic piano, even if it doesn't have to be even a grand piano. But just acoustic piano that in tune. Yeah, but this is to be expected if you move to the countryside where I am. You know, you don't.
Yes,
I'm
yeah.
lucky to have some people I can play with. You know.
Right. You're out in the middle. What's the you're basically between Finland and Sweden, is that?
Sweden. Yeah.
And you're yeah, so
I'm
you have
in
to
the
take
middle of
a
nowhere. No, it's a it's a great place. It's very beautiful. You can probably see some on the internet. You can check it out. The Åland Islands. You can see it's very beautiful and everything. But it's far from a jazz center.
right. What is it like there now all the time, or is it dark? Or
It's
is it
not. It's getting lighter and lighter. It's not. It's not completely light yet. It's not white nights yet.
White
But
Nights? Yeah.
it will be. It will be in a few weeks. It will be.
How long does that last?
It lasts the whole summer, basically until September almost. You know, I mean, in August already it's getting darker and dark nights. You're getting. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Put shades on the window so you can sleep?
Yes. Oh, I have shades all the time.
Yeah. Hey, Vladimir, I wanted to ask you about this. Is this club still here? Because this groovy
No.
is that club? No. Was this
no.
taken there? This picture?
It's gone. It has gone. It has gone out almost less than a year after I moved to New York. I hate to say it's because of me, but as we were this trio, we were so active. I was very active there, and a couple of other guys were a part of the scene, you know. So, but I was very enthusiastic, you know. At one point, this club has been going down, and they were almost at the brink of closing it or doing something. So, so I came up with suggestion that if they reduce the prices that they have for entrance, for the charge, and we have one night completely free, like Sunday, kind of a jam session and free entrance. So we could do 3 nights a week with this trio, and it kind of revived the whole thing when we started doing that.
Oh, you broke
we
up
were
there.
playing like Monday, Wednesday maybe, and Sunday would be jam session, and we were like a house rhythm section. So it kind of brought a new life to that. But we took a cut in the salary, and we asked them to take a cut in a charge music. Well, not it's not. Yeah, kind of. You could say that it was a music charge. Yeah. So, but as I moved to New York, the first summer I came from New York, I was still playing there, but then it fizzled out.
All right. After some technical difficulties, we reconvene in Vladimir's studio. So what piano do you have in there?
I have Yamaha.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
So
Nice.
Vladimir, one of my favorite versions of Autumn Leaves is on this. There was one of my favorite versions of Autumn Leaves.
Thank you very much. You are very kind.
And I found another copy. This one's sealed, still sealed in the wrapper.
Fantastic.
So I have one. So if I wear this one out, I have a backup.
Is that the original or Japanese?
No, I think this is the second pressing. This is the one by Warner Music, right? I think that's the second pressing.
All right. So it's second. Yeah. I don't know if I have the original actually.
Yeah, the original one's really hard to find.
I had so many of them, you could not believe.
That's one of my favorite autumn versions of Autumn Leaves. It's like over 11 minutes, but it goes by so quickly. You guys do so much on that. It's wonderful.
We did this record after I came from my first trip in New York. I heard several people playing Autumn Leaves, and I kind of start feeling start getting a feeling for it again.
That's a great version. I did want to ask you about this guy because I emailed you
Right.
about and I was in the record store.
But yeah, I actually have never heard any of his records.
So I was in the record store and I saw this it was in the used bin for $5, and so I just grabbed it and I'd never heard it. This is fantastic. What an incredible player he was. I think he was very, very. How would I phrase it? Unpredictable, the way he would add things in and the different rhythms, and very, very unique anyways, I think.
Well, I never heard any of his records, and I actually never heard him like a solo pianist. I never heard him. I only heard him with Richie Cole. Richie Cole.
Yeah.
You know Richie Cole?
Well, I didn't know of him until I got this record that he's on here with.
Yeah, he was in Richie Cole band for a minute. That's how I got to know him.
Yeah.
I knew him very well. He was one of the regular in all clubs, and especially in Bradley's. But he could never get a gig at Bradley's because he played so hard on the piano, and Bradley hated that. Bradley said, I remember bartender or somebody said to Bradley, Bobby Enriquez was here. He was looking for you. There's always piano players looking for Bradley to get a gig. It was the best gig in town for piano players. So I said, Bobby Enriquez was looking for you. And Bradley, if I want my piano smashed, I'm going to ask the guy to come with a sledgehammer.
There's some really good tunes on here. You have Groovin' High on here with Dizzy Gillespie, Yardbird Suite, Green Dolphin Street.
I have no doubt.
Very intense. He does hit the piano.
I heard him several times. As well as with Richie Cole in some sessions. So he would play. How shall we say? He would play a regular jazz piano for a while, and then he would start going with his knuckles and elbows and everything because he was a karate guy. Okay, so. And he played congas also. So he had this thing going, So he would play like a regular piano for a while, and then he would start going with everything. So, and that of course he was an entertainer. He was a very funny guy. He always had some jokes. And he was always at Bradley's listening to other piano players. He was a big piano enthusiast, shall we say. He was familiar with all the piano players, and everybody liked him because he was so easygoing, and he had always jokes and different puns and stuff like this. And the bartenders loved him because he always ordered the most expensive cognac. He always had cognac here, and he smoked Dunhills, and he had Dunhill Golden Lighter. I remember that very well, and because he was always in the last set after hours, he was always near the piano, and when I was playing, he was there encouraging always. Yeah, things like this. So yeah, and then later on, I don't know if it was his club or he was just in connection with this Filipino people. They had Manila Club in New York. They opened in the later part of my how shall we say, my career in New York. They opened a club. I don't know if they have been open, but they started having jazz. So he booked me there. Manila Club. They were going with jazz for a while. Some kind of Filipino mafia, I thought. So they were, in New York, they always have those things. People open some clubs to wash, to wash the money and things like this. Several clubs were like this. There was a club on the east side called Carlos One. It was some kind of Jamaican mafia also. because they paid a lot. They paid. They start booking like a big name artists. I played there with Benny Carter. I played there with Ernestine Anderson. Played there with Sweets Addison. So they had a lot of great people there. Monty was playing there, and Ray Bryant. Lots of named people, you know, and they paid very good money. But oftentimes there were not that many people there. So I always was surprised how they can afford all these things.
Yeah. Yeah, I was very impressed with his playing, but I was also I'd never heard Richie Cole until I listened to this, and that guy could play too.
Richie Cole, Alpha Madness. Unfortunately, he also died. You know, people are dying on me, which because I was thinking of them as still pretty young people. I can tell you another funny story about Bobby Enriquez, since you're asking about it. One time I was at the Fat Tuesdays, was a club also, and Dizzy was playing there. And, this time Dizzy had Hank Jones playing piano. So, of course, I couldn't miss that. So I was there almost every night, if not every night. And one time, of course, Bobby Enriquez came by, and he was in the dressing room. We're talking, everybody was hanging out, talking with Dizzy. And so they went on with the set, and they start playing. I don't think it was the first tune. Maybe the second tune was some Latin tune. But yeah, Bobby Enriquez, he was crazy about Latin things. He always used to play some Latin, because that would give him a chance to do all his
percussive
karate stuff. So anyway, so they start playing this Latin tune. May have been Blue Bossa, but maybe not. Maybe one of the, Dizzy had a lot of Latin, Afro-Cuban things in his repertoire. So Bobby Enriquez got on the stage next to Hank. First he was standing behind Hank, looking at the way Hank played, Then he got on the right side of the piano and kind of a little bit moved to the right edge of the piano, and still watching Hank. Then little by little he started adding a little bit. Adding a little bit of his stuff on top of the piano, like on a higher. Then more and more he was pushing to the center of the piano. So finally he pushed Hank altogether. So Hank, being a gentleman, he got up. And and he stand beside the piano and kind of looked in amazement at Bobby Enriquez. And Dizzy looked at him, but he didn't say anything.
He didn't say anything.
No, didn't say anything. So they finished the number and he got off the piano. But Dizzy never said anything. And Hank never said anything. But I thought it was tremendously ballsy of him to push Hank Jones off the piano. But that's the way he was, He was very aggressive, kind of a guy. Not in a bad sense. I don't think he was ever really... I never seen him being really aggressive. I was very surprised he died, because he looked in a very good physical shape. As I said, I think he was a black belt.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Anyway, it was a surprise to me.
Yeah. Huh.
So you found him.
Yeah,
but I never heard any of his records. I just knew him as a funny guy, as an entertainer, as a wild man. We used to call him the wild man. Everybody knew him as a wild man.
Yeah.
And later on, he was not in such a good shape, actually, when I remember when he came by in Manila Club. I was working with Valery, a trumpet player, Valery Ponomarev. I don't know if you know him. He used to play with Art Blakey.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a trumpet player from Moscow, who at some point, for a couple of years, he was working with Blakey. Before Winter Marsalis and those guys came on the scene, there was a gap in young jazz musicians. It's particularly in a black jazz musicians community, young guys. They were the guys who could play. They went most of the time. They went to commercial music, the funk and stuff like this. So they were actually in need for people who played bebop. So Valery was a trumpet player who studied Clifford Brown very closely, and Lee Morgan and all those people. So he was coming basically out of Clifford Brown. So when Art Blakey discovered him, he joined the band, and he was with the band for a couple of years before Winton joined, and then of course he lost his place, and that was it. Because after that, the whole bunch of young black musicians started playing more traditional jazz, because they could see they could make money playing that as well. So Winton, I think, he was like an inspiration for younger Afro-American musicians, particularly trumpet players. The guys that followed him, like Terence Blanchard, and then Wallace Roney, who I actually played before anybody knew him. In Finland, he was a part of a Dollar Brand big band, and he was not so thrilled of playing in Dollar Brand's music in a big band. I just ran into him, and like me being a social animal, I just saw him standing in a jam session, and I start talking to him, and he says, I want to play. Do you know any place I could play? And I said, yeah, next door we have a club, and I'm just on the break, so come on and play with us. So, and he was great, he said he already played with Blakey some gigs, and he played with Philly Joe. So I was, that when he told me that, that's all I needed to know. So I said, come on the stage and play. And later on, of course, in New York, we were friendly, and yeah.
Gone too soon again. Another wonderful musician gone too soon.
Yes.
Well,
yes. Well, something strange happened to him, because he was like a very skinny
I'm not sure if he had cancer or what. I don't know.
Well, suddenly, after I left in New York, I saw some video with him, and he's like a big, fat, incredible. He gained a lot of weight. Didn't look like himself.
Yeah.
Very strange looking, and then I heard that he died. Yeah, I don't know, cancer or whatever.
Yeah. Very young.
Very talented. I played with him and his brother, Antoine. Yeah.
In reading about, I was reading about Bobby Enriquez, and it says that he would go listen to a record and then come back the next day and play all the songs on it. They said he had a very good ear and very good memory, and he could memorize and learn songs very quickly.
Well, he knew he grew up with American culture, so he knew quite a bit. But he was an eccentric.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever heard him play one single solo straight.
Yeah.
He would just start playing, playing straight, and then he would go into his karate thing. And so that, but I never heard him. Like I said, I never heard him leading a trio or leading a band. So I only heard him with Richie Cole.
Yeah.
And Richie Cole, who was also a very talented alto player, but he also was into this entertainment kind of thing, So it's a bit of a circus, but they combine good music plus entertainment.
Yeah. I also came across this guy, Vladimir, which I'm not, who I was talking to a Italian saxophone player, Cristiano Giardini, several months ago, and he had recommended this Ferdinand Povel.
Oh yeah, I played with him too as well.
That's another unbelievable.
I played with him.
So I bought several CDs of his.
One good CD, yeah, he's very good. They used to play with. Do you know Dusko Gojkovic? Do you know who that is?
How do you say his name?
Dusko Gojkovic,
I don't think so. No.
great trumpet player.
Is he? I wonder if he's.
From,
See,
you know,
I just got these in.
So they used to have a band. Yeah, they used to have a band with European band. I think there is a the way I found out about him because I love Tete Montoliu. You know the Spanish, well, Catalan. You know Tete, right?
Yes, I've heard the name, but I don't have any of his albums.
Well, you need to get on that. He's one of the great. Yeah.
You have to tell me which album to get.
Tete Montoliu. He's one of the one of the great piano players, and I think, in my opinion, the best European jazz piano player ever.
Really?
The best in my opinion. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You have to tell me what record to get. What I should look for.
There's so many good records with him, but he made a bunch of records. First of all, he did 2 or 3 records with Niels Henning and Tutti Heath.
Okay.
They used to have a trio, so it's like one record is called Tete, just simply. One record is called Catalonian Fire. So those are fine records. One record is Tete a Tete, Tete a Tete.
Okay. Yeah.
But also he made the records with George Mraz and Louis Nash. He made the records with several great players, and there are also some videos you can catch on the internet before you buy. Yeah, I always recommend. You know, these days you can so easily to listen to some people on the internet and make your choice. Some, if not the whole album, you could pick up some tracks and listen
Right.
to it. But he's fantastic pianist, in my opinion. You should not miss Tete. So because of the Tete, I bought a record. They had a quintet with Dusko Gojkovic and Ferdinand Povel. So also the tenor player that I used to play with a lot in Sweden, Bernd Rosengren. You know, the guy who played with Doug Rainey. Remember?
Okay. Yeah.
So Bernd Rosengren, they made a record with Doug Rainey. It's called Meets the Tenors, something like this. It's a crisscross.
Okay.
So Bernd Rosengren is on that along with Ferdinand Povel. But I played with him first time in Jersey Islands. Yeah, there was a European radio competition, and we were representing Finland. A saxophone player whom I also know you're familiar with, Eero Koivistoinen.
Yes, actually, I was gonna.
Yes, so Eero, I was in his band. So Eero wrote music for symphony, a full orchestra, and a quintet. Ultima Thule. So it's based on Nordic folklore. So we, with this program, we went to London and we rehearsed with the BBC orchestra, and then we went to Jersey Island where we were participating in this different radio broadcast competition. So Ferdinand was there from Netherlands, and so of course we played. And then he came to Finland. I invited him to come and visit, and he played at Groovy actually.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, we had many people. Ronnie Scott came. Different people from Europe used to come to Finland, you know, and we used to accompany. You know.
Yeah, I was listening to this one
He's a very fine player.
with Rob Madna.
Yes, I know who that is. Yes,
Yeah.
I know. Dutch piano player. Yeah.
Yeah, so was really good. It's 1976. This one was from.
Ferdinand is great. Yeah, he's a very fine tenor player. Uh, they have. I don't think it's. I don't think there's many of them. I don't know. He's probably still alive. He must be.
I think he is.
Yeah.
He was
He
teaching
must be.
I think he's
He must
teaching
be.
in Italy or somewhere. Well, maybe not be Italy, it may be
He
somewhere
was
else.
older than me. He's older than me, so he must be in his 80s or something. Yeah.
Because,
But Holland, Holland didn't always. They don't always had a lot of mainstream musicians. It's very. They were always inclined towards avant-garde. There's a lot of that in Amsterdam. There's a lot of, free spirits, free.
well, I was very impressed. I had never heard of Eero either until I ran across those other record that they put out. And this is a little bit more, it is avant-garde, but it's not quite as far out as some of the other stuff he's done.
Eero is a good friend of mine. We used to play for many years together, and we made 3 or 4 albums actually.
Which
I'm
album?
not. I'm no longer in a big house. I would have shown you. I have actually first record we did together. It came out on LP, and I just played with him, and I got a present from him, that LP. Again, I don't have a record player, but now
What's the name of that album?
Album is called Labyrinth.
Okay, I'll have to check that out. I'll have to find it.
Yeah, you could have gotten it from me because I don't have a record player.
You need to get one.
But I mean, if you live long enough, I guess it became those records become somehow important.
Yeah, I listen to them every day.
Yeah.
Something.
But I remember it was my second recording date, jazz recording date. The first one was with a trumpet player named Mike Koskinen. He recorded. It was Love Records in Finland. They recorded a lot of different stuff, but you could get if you write music, they basically liked originals. So if you wrote original music, you could have gotten. I was not even thinking about that because I just got to Finland and I was happy to be a sideman, to be a part of the. The music was much more modern than I used to.
Yeah.
So it wasn't easy. I was trying to find my place, but at that time I was listening to this more modern people like Chick Corea and Keith Jarrett and McCoy and all these people. So it was at the time I wanted to learn more about modern style. So but Eero he went to Berkeley, so he could play a traditional. He was not out and out bebop player or swing player, but he could play some standards and standard ballads and stuff like this. So he knew his theory, his harmony and things like this. He still plays.
Yeah.
I just played with him not long ago, and when I was playing recently, when I was playing in a trio, he was there, and very enthusiastic. Because we played something fast, he was like, "Oh, you guys playing so fast." So we used to play so fast also, because in his band we used to play very, very fast tempos. At some point,
Yeah.
lots of fast tunes. And he said, "You remember how fast we played? I cannot believe how fast we played." I said, "Yeah, because we could."
Yeah. Well, I was doing a review the other day of, actually I just put it up yesterday, of Champion Fulton. It's a ballad album. And I really enjoyed that. But there's something to be said of being able to play the ballads very well because there's no place to hide, especially if you've only got a trio or 2 people playing. You can't just, throw some things in there and hide behind drum or whatever, right?
For sure. You have so much more space to fill.
Yeah.
Between the notes. But I wouldn't dare to do a whole ballad album. I don't know. I don't know if I would dare to do that.
Yeah.
It depends how you do it. If you play a ballad and then go into double tempo, then it's easier. But if you play on the piano, if you play the whole album, just slow ballads, very slow. It's interesting. I just read the interview. It's an old interview with the drummer who used to play with Monk, by name of Frankie Dunlop. And he was talking about that. He said, when I joined Monk, there was a lot of talk about people difficult to play fast. But Monk said, it's more difficult to play slow. And when Frankie Dunlop just joined the band, he started playing one tune who was very, very slow. And he got off the piano. And he left them playing Charlie Rouse and Butch Warren and Frankie Dunlop play by themselves. And they were struggling. And then he said, play a drum solo.
Yeah.
So he remembered that he was, and there was several drummers several drummers were in the house checking him out. You must be a bad cat if you play with Monk, that kind of thing, And so there he was sweating, trying to play this slow tempo. He said it was so embarrassing, and said after that Monk said, "See, I told you, the slow tempos are more difficult."
Yeah, and I would think you would be inclined. I know, just thinking to myself, you're afraid to kind of leave too much open space. You would think that let the notes ring out. You want to fill in more. I would think you would be kind of like I don't want to be.
I mean, I could do a ballad album if I would. I would prefer to do it solo piano in that case.
Yeah.
Because you could feel all by yourself. But if you have a written section, very, very slow. I mean, first of all, you need like at least 10 numbers. You need at least 10 tunes to play. And I would be afraid for it to be too monotonous, so people would fall asleep when they're listening to that.
Yeah, I was with this one.
Might be good in case you have some insomnia, some problems with the sleeping disorder. Maybe good album for that, But I would not subject my record company to. I mean, I could do that, but I wouldn't. I wouldn't dare to do it. You need the reality. You need, I mean. Bill Evans, of course, was one of the people that could do it, perhaps just the ballads, because of the way he treated the piano, and but even that could be, to take in the whole album could be difficult, Singers, I played with some singers that were doing very, very, very slow ballads, like Little Jimmy Scott. He would start a ballad, and the first beat would be this one, and the next one would be like next week.
Yeah.
And he would be floating between the beats. But you had to be there on time. But his ballads were very, very, very slow. Torchy, bluesy kind of feeling. And he would know with his phrasing where he was. He would always know. But you had to keep time and not rush it. And, and so that was a challenge.
Yeah, that record I was talking about with Champion Fulton and Klaus Lindquist, who is a clarinet player, saxophone player. It's just the two of them on the record. But she also sings.
No rhythm section.
No rhythm section, just those,
okay,
just
so
the two.
That is easier. Yeah.
And then she sings about half. She sings on half the song, so it's a nice, listen all the way through.
Yeah, that is easier to do, particularly if you have a horn. You're talking about playing horn, sustaining notes, especially the saxophone. So that's a lot easier than to do it just on the piano. Unless if you play piano and you can play it like a rubato tempo, not necessarily in time, but in tempo, but playing it rubato. and and lots of arpeggios and things like this. You can fill it up on the piano, but it's difficult to carry a long line melodic line on the piano, because the instrument doesn't sustain the melody. You need to do something, fill it with the chords and arpeggios and things like this. And so yeah. It certainly is a challenge, but unless my record company would specifically ask for it,
Right.
I'm always kind of afraid to do just one thing,
Right.
just like all the fast tunes or all the medium tunes or all the ballads or all Latin tempos or whatever. I liked variety. I think the people should be able. Ideally, I think a listener should be able to take in the record from the first to the last tune, and not to wander, and not to look at the clock.
Right. I like, well, this depends on what kind of mood I'm in, but I do like if I pull out a record, I like, if I'm in the mood for very intense playing, then I like to have that, listen to the whole album like that. And even if there's some variation, it's fine. But yeah.
Listen, if you are somebody like Ben Webster or Johnny Hodges, you could do 10 albums of ballads.
Yeah.
It's all right.
Yeah.
With his big sound, particularly, some albums I remember Ben Webster with strings, and he would do the whole album over ballads.
Right.
With his big sound. What's wrong with that? It's very beautiful.
Right. Yeah. What do you think about the length of records now, Vladimir? Since on a record, typically a vinyl record, you'd have about 20 minutes on each side. So it's only 40 minutes of music. Whereas if you get a CD now, there might be double that. You might have 75 minutes on a record.
I don't like it, to tell you, to be absolutely truthful. But then again, you don't need to listen to the whole thing at once.
Right.
But I think the LP format is what I like better. Yeah, I think it's enough. But now they're asking us to do 12, 13 tunes. It's a bit too much. LP, yeah, I remember all these classic LPs when they had, every tune was great. You couldn't leave out any tune.
Mm-hmm.
If you think of some classic records like Miles Davis Round About Midnight, you cannot take a single note out.
Right.
Everybody plays. I used to listen to the record. I used to know everybody's solos. Now you have records with so many tunes and so many solos, you can hardly remember what you listened to last week.
Yeah.
But I remember still those records that I got when I was a young fellow in Leningrad. And the records that I got, I was very lucky to have to be able to have some good records, like early Miles records with the Miles Quintet and other things. I remember everything. I remember every solo. I remembered every tune. Yeah, but now we have embarrassment of riches, as I said. There's so many material. Like right there, you have so many things to digest. But I'm basically sticking with the basics. I go I check out a few things, but I go back to the classics.
Yeah, I love the classics too.
There's more than enough, and I know there's many things that I've missed. Lots of things by Duke, Basie, Oscar Peterson, Billie Holiday, whatever. There are so many things that I've missed. So there's plenty in classic repertoire without going into so many newer people. I mean, sometimes I see some clubs or festivals, they send me some material. I hardly recognize any names. Mm-hmm. I don't know any of these people. I don't know where they're coming from. and they may be geniuses, or they may be complete amateurs. I have no idea, you know.
Right.
But I mean, sometimes I look like publications like Jazz Journal, British. Sometimes I don't. They have interviews and features on people. I never even heard of these people. I have no idea. In New York, Smalls or Mesro Club, you know, they have lots of pianists that I never heard of, and probably never will, because I don't have time for everybody.
Right.
You know? There are some people that are still that I knew from the time they were younger people, of course, but every once in a while I see some familiar name. But there's a lot of people that are coming out of colleges, you know.
Right.
I
Yeah,
guess,
a lot.
schools, and they all need somewhere to play. So I guess, and the clubs need to, because they all have now only one nighters.
Right. Yeah. Very rarely do you see. I mean, you still see some of them, but they're usually the big names get those 3 or 4 days or whatever.
Yeah. You could get. I could get a couple of nights, you know, but it's still 2 nights, you know. I mean, like we're talking about Monk playing, for example, in 5-spot.
Right. 2-3 weeks or whatever.
2-3 weeks. How about 40 weeks?
Yeah. 4 in a row.
Yeah.
Yeah. That doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah, you know, I talked to Paul Motion, who is also passed, but he told me they would play 4 weeks at the Vanguard, then they would go to Birdland and play 3 weeks there, then they would go like to Boston and play a couple of weeks there, and then they would come, maybe go to DC and play 2 weeks there, then we'll come back and start all over again in New York, playing again 3-4 weeks in the Vanguard, and you know, so that was like a regular thing.
Right. Yeah. Occasionally I'll see advertisements.
And most of the time in Vanguard, they used to have at least 2 bands. In
Yeah.
5-spot, they also in 5-spot, when they had Ornette Coleman in 5-spot, they were there for like almost 2 years or 3 years. I don't remember. I don't want to lie, but very, very long time. But they always had another band opposite them, like more traditional band they would have. But it was
Yeah.
very extended engagement in those places.
Yeah, I think now that would be more difficult because from what I'm hearing, there's less places to play. And if you have people in there for 2 or 3 weeks, some people would never get a chance to even play. So, I mean, I can understand that to a point because if you're, you know, I always talk about on this channel about keeping jazz alive because if there's no new people, the genre will die. So you have to have places where people can play. And that's, unfortunately, there's less places to play now and you've got more musicians. So
A lot more musicians, yeah.
yeah, so it's a challenge.
But I think in New York they have a lot of like different places to play, different clubs that, you know, they don't pay any money, but a lot of young people just go on and play there.
Right.
I don't know how many established rooms right now there is in New York, but
You still got the big ones, the Smalls and Vanguard, right? And
well, Smalls was really small one. It became bigger, but I mean, in my time, Smalls was really insignificant. I used to get calls for Smalls. They were paying like $50. I wouldn't even go. You know, I wasn't interested in places like this because I was working during the day a lot of times in studios at that point, and for me to go somewhere for $30 or $50.
yeah, not worth it.
When I came to New York, you know, $100 was a standard price, standard, and in the 80s, $100 went a long way.
Twice as long as it does now.
When you play the club for 6 nights, usually it was 6 nights. You know, you got $600, or if you, or in some places maybe it was a little more. Maybe you could get $125 or $150 even sometimes. So that would take care of your rent and even maybe food. So if you can pick up a couple of students and maybe a couple of gigs with maybe singer or so, you were okay in New York. You didn't need to more than that. You needed 1 week of work, which is basically I always had. Because my rent was like 300.
As long as you have that covered, you're good, right?
Yeah, I
You
mean,
can eat.
it was not luxury. I had just a room where I was sharing an apartment, but I mean, you have a 1 week of work. It takes care of your expenses to being in a city. You're not going to get rich, but at least you survive. You know, and if you're lucky, you could pick up some recordings and stuff like this. So it's all gravy then.
Right, and then a lot of the young people are saying now that I talked to on this channel, they're saying that the prices haven't gone up that much on what they get paid for a gig. In other words, you might make $100 on a gig now, and that's worth half of what it was back in the 80s.
It's $100.
Nothing.
I hate to say it, but $100 in some places would buy you a lunch.
Yeah, so I think it's becoming a struggle for a lot of these younger musicians. Of course, it's always
If you want to come to New York and play, you got to have money of your own. You got to be on some kind of scholarship. I remember when Jimmy Cobb, the great drummer, when he came to Russia, I remember some guys were asking him because they wanted to go to New York. Some drummers, or maybe other musicians. He said, you need to marry rich or have rich parents if you want to go to New York and play jazz.
Yeah.
That's a realistic appraisal from the veteran. Somebody who played with Miles and Wes Montgomery and everybody, And I know that up until his death, he was still struggling, even though he played with the great people. He had to play with a lot of young musicians. Sometimes in the clubs where I played, I know that I was not getting paid that much, and so he was the same, and he already more than paid his dues.
Yeah. Wow.
But that was just a period, It was part of the band. If you didn't make your big money then, because Miles, he didn't pay anything.
Oh, really? His musicians?
All those people, Art Blakey, Miles, people went there because they had exposure.
Yeah.
But all those people who were into drugs, they never paid anybody. Did I tell you the story about Art Blakey and Stanley Clarke?
I don't think so.
It was it's just a short story that would give you a realistic picture of all these people like Art Blakey, So anyway, a good friend of mine told me the story, George Cables.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yep. George Cables at the time was working with Art Blakey, Jazz Messengers. And he said, and they were rooming with Stanley Clarke. Stanley Clarke was a young fellow who just came. I don't remember where he came from. He just moved to New York, and they were rooming together, okay? And so one day George is saying to Stanley, our bass player is leaving, so they may be opening for you. Why don't you come and talk to Art? So Stanley came, and he sat in, and Art liked him, and they played, and then he went on the road. So maybe a week or 10 days passed, and there's some expenses. So Stanley came to Art Blakey and said, Art, how about some money? So Art Blakey looked at him and said, I thought you were sitting in.
Yeah.
So no money.
Wow. You would think he must have been doing pretty well for himself, Art Blakey, right?
But he was into heroin. That cost money. That cost money. Can you imagine to feed this monkey?
Yeah, that. Yep.
So, so I never wanted to have any junkies in my band, because they could sell their own mother just to get fix. Yeah. And they stick together because they are.
They always know where the stuff is at.
Yeah, because they know today you have some, and next time they have some, so they stick together. So, they could mean very well, but when they need the fix, they could sell anything, and you
Yeah,
know, so yeah, but Art Blakey was a very charming guy.
yeah,
Yeah, he could charm birds off the tree. So people, and of course people. But most of the people, they were not so stupid. They knew once they get exposure with Art Blakey Just Messengers, they could cash in later on,
right.
like a lots of them did.
Yeah,
Like Benny Green and all those other guys. They suffered for a while, you
but
know,
they,
but then they could write in their CVs, "I played with Art Blakey Just Messengers." So so that always means something. I don't know, frankly, I don't know how much that means anymore.
yeah,
Because
yeah. I was thinking about that.
yeah,
Yeah, how
there's
you
so
get
many
that?
people, there are so many people coming out with so-called their own music and their own sound, and I don't know if things that we invested, that I particularly, as example, invested my whole life in going to New York and being a part of New York scene and having. Well, for me, it meant much. It meant much more than just having stamp on your head that you could play. All these masters could say, "Yeah, you can play," So it
Right.
was worth. It was worth all the hardships that we had to be part of the real New York jazz scene. But today, if people just want to get ahead and they had their material recorded or published, they don't need to do that. They don't need to suffer. They could put their stuff just on the internet, and
Right.
they could get their own audience, and just announce on the internet where they're going to play and present that music if people knew it from the record, and have the audience that way. They don't need to. They don't need to pay so-called dues.
Right. Yeah, and there's still some that I've talked to on this channel that do that seek out the older guys to play with. There's still people that are doing that. And
It's
like
not
one
so
of
much that the older guys. It's just, of course, the age.
the legends, so to speak.
Yeah, the people are legends. We don't have that
The
many left.
Yeah, but the one there are still some that are out there that people are going to learn from, which is a good thing, I think.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, but I mean,
You still have
the
Lewis
real.
Hayes. Lewis Hayes is still playing. George
That's
Coleman's
right.
still playing. I mean, there's still quite a few, but
Yes, there's still few. I wouldn't say quite a few, but I would say a few. Louis Hayes, of course, but what can I say? See, because of the way I look at it, because he's a drummer, and if your drummer leads the band, there's only so much you can do.
but like
You know what I mean?
Blakey,
He's part of rhythm section.
yeah, yeah,
When Louis Hayes made his reputation, he was playing with the Giants. You know, Cannonball and all those people. I don't know how to explain that. I mean, he still would have to adjust to the young guys,
sure,
which in a way is also good. It's stimulating for the older guy to be like Roy Haynes and to have a younger guys in the band. So that keeps energy, keeps them young. But I'm saying from the point of view of a rhythm section, and if you're leading the band, you're leading the people who are under you. Mm-hmm. They're not on your level.
right. But hopefully, you're passing on some of that to the younger people that will then get better and carry on to the next.
Sure.
Right.
No, of course he's got so much experience, and he God bless, he still can play. That's great. But what I'm saying is, when the drummers or the bass player lead the band, it's still the horn players and the piano players that are up front.
Right.
So yeah, so there's not there's not much you can really do if you're part of a rhythm section. You can inspire them, but you are the giant, they're not giants.
Right. Well, like Blakey did, he was able to bring in those young
Just
guys.
let me give you just an example. For instance, if we take Ray Brown, who was a part of Oscar Peterson trio, okay, and of course part of many fantastic bands. Now, if he gets a trio, he cannot get Oscar Peterson play for him. He cannot get. He's lucky if he can get. You can get some great people if he has a record project. Mm-hmm. But to tour with him, he need to get some younger guys that will go on the road with him and would work for not that much money. So in a piano trio, is the piano player who is 85%, 90%. If you know what I mean.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So there is not that much the rhythm section guys can do if you have a younger, less experienced person up front.
Right.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Hopefully, yeah, still some of the wisdom gets passed down.
Yes, definitely that. Oh, I know why they are there, of course. When I know when I played with older guys, I knew why I was there, and I was grateful they could tolerate me.
Right. Yeah. So what do you think then, Vlad? Do you do any lessons or anything like that where you are? Do you have any students that you? Is that something you're interested
sometimes, in? When I'm on the road, sometimes if I'm in Stockholm, there is a healthy young generation now, guys that come and where I'm playing, and it's basically passing my experience, because they all can play. The younger guys, they play very well. They need experience, so they want to hear, like you do. They want to hear the stories. They want to hear more about the life in New York at a certain period of time, how these people were, people that they admire on the records, let's say in print. They want to know how they interacted and did things in a real working situations, So that's basically what you pass on to them.
Right.
It's not like this is the chord.
Yeah.
They know that.
But what about the phrasing and learning the jazz language? Because just because you can play technically well doesn't mean necessarily you play jazz well. Right?
Well, I'm not really into basic education in schools or anything like this. The guys that I'm dealing with that want to take my lessons with me, they basically can play already. I can help and kind of guide them to the right people. But basically, they know already about. I mean, it's scary because at their age, I didn't know that much of anything. But it's now the wealth of information on the internet and so many records that people have. I cannot, you can help them, but basically they know a lot already. I mean, people I'm dealing with, they know a lot. If people are on the wrong track, then you can, if they are talented, you can help them. But I'm not in a school or somewhere else where I have to deal with complete amateurs and telling them how to phrase, how to play the melody and stuff like this. I could, but I'm only doing it when somebody asks me.
Yeah. So would you do something local there at your studio? Are there any students?
Sometimes I had some young musicians coming by. Sometimes, basically, if I have to play with someone, okay, like the bass player I'm working with, then I need to definitely have trying to help them to acquire basic knowledge, because they are really amateurs. Mm-hmm. They may be gifted, but they need experience. There is no experience to be had here. Their experience is playing with me. So Well, with my bass player, I'm not being successful. I was trying to get him to listen and to leave out all these iPads and other things. But because we used to work every week, so I got him in the habit to listen to me, because the way I play, I could play the same tune, but maybe chorus from chorus, I could change the harmony. I could go about the tune in 2 or 3 different ways. And sometimes I don't even know why I did that, but it feels right to go there, and so I do. And so he needs to follow me. Sometimes he could do things, I tell him, sometimes you could do things and I will follow you. Because that's the way we did it in New York. You know, you played with some good bass players. They would challenge you by changing the lines and taking it, you know. One time I was playing with Ron Carter, we were playing a tune, and he took a solo in a different key altogether. So just probably to check if I'm listening.
Yeah.
You know? But I mean, usually people don't do that, but he did that. Luckily, I was all ears. I was, you know, when you work with somebody like this, I mean, I always listen to everybody. But I remember when I was working with Ron, you know, I had like 2 ears instead of one. I had a big elephant ear here on the left
Really
side.
focusing, yeah.
I needed to react to every note he was playing, because every note was important. So I remember he did that. And other people, Ray Drummond, he used to do things like this, change the harmonies, change the lines, and you had to react. Yeah. So, you know, and not only them, even some other people, guys in New York that are not known, they would do that. They would challenge you. Mm-hmm. Even though they're supposed to play in your gig. This is my gig. But they come on the gig and they try to challenge you.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
All in good fun.
Other people don't do it. Like Bob Crenshaw, he would always play what you play. You know? Mm-hmm. So one way out of that, I noticed some piano players did that. They had a lot of music written. Mm-hmm. If they want to escape this kind of challenge. Because I used to play without any music. See? So it was always like contact, one-to-one situation, mano-a-mano. So if they play something, I have to react. I play something, they react. But I noticed some other people, they would come with a bunch of shit music and they force the bass player to read. So there would be no challenges. The same bass players that used to challenge me, they had no time to challenge this piano player because they were too busy reading.
Yeah.
So that's one way out, which I didn't want to do because I enjoyed the challenge.
Yeah, yeah.
Sometimes you fail, you know.
Right. Yeah. That's all part of the fun, though, right?
So what I do if I fail, he said, you can say I'm sorry after the gig.
Yeah. But isn't that all part of the fun of having that conversation back and forth while you're playing?
That's what jazz is about.
Yeah.
It's not about reading, you know. It's not about reading. I'm always surprised to see bands. Just right now, I checked. I'm supposed to play. Well, I connected with the one fellow drummer that used to work with me. He lives in France now, but he used to come to Finland and work with me. He's been in New York at that time, and he used to play with all kinds of guys. And I met him during the festival, and I started inviting him to come and play with me in Finland, because he used to be married to Air France stewardess, and he could get flights for free, and he could stay with me, and he was a great drummer. I mean, probably still is. But I have not been connecting with him. Sangoma Everett is his name. Anyway, we got reconnected. So he's got some kind of project, and he's talking to me about this saxophone player, English saxophone player. So, okay, I'm checking him out. He plays only original music. Everybody is reading, including drummers. I don't understand when drummer they on a live gig and the drummer has to read.
Right.
In a quartet. You know? I don't understand that.
Yeah. I think some of that
We talked about that before.
yeah, with original music, I guess some of it's pretty complex, and until you learn the tune, I guess
So what?
maybe you
So
need something.
don't play complex. Who need that?
Yeah,
I mean,
well,
play simpler tunes. I mean, the listeners don't care. They want to hear good music. It's all dealing with ego. I'm a big writer, so we need to play my music. I don't deal with that at all. Not. I mean, if you have a complicated music, so spend more time rehearsing it. That's the way. People used to do it. If music needs to be rehearsed, just think of classical musicians. Just think of how many complicated pieces a classical pianist has to know by heart. We're not even going into interpretation and everything like this. Just play the notes already requires. When I used to study classical piano, the first time your teacher gives you a piece, you come with the music. The next time they want you to play by heart.
yeah, but some of them still play by. I see on YouTube they got someone sitting there flipping the pages for the pianist, for the classical pianist. They have a person there that
Solo piano?
yeah. They have sheet music, and there's somebody actually flipping the page for them while they're playing.
Yes, but usually that is in chamber music, not a solo.
Oh, well, I mean, a classical pianist.
But is that
Why do they
is
need
there
to read the
more-
music
is
for
there
that?
more than one instrument?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So it's a chamber music. In chamber music, it's allowed to have.
But why do you need to read music on that? Why don't they have that memorized?
Because it's a tradition. Basically, I think it has to do with the things that they don't play the whole piece. They play with another instrument. They probably, I mean, the great people, they probably know it by heart anyway. But tradition is in a chamber music, it's allowed to have music on. Not in a solo piano tradition. But in a chamber music, they do have music. Yeah. And if they have like two pianos and they have complicated things, they do have music on. So like in chamber music, it's a tradition to have music on. Don't ask me why. Probably started out like that, and they kept it. Even if they play like if there's a violin sonata, there's a violin and piano. I'm pretty sure the violinist, if they play like Beethoven sonata, for example, I'm sure the violinist, as well as the pianist, but particularly violinist, he knows the piece by heart. But he still has music in front of him. He doesn't necessarily look at it, but he has it. The piano players, of course, has somebody turning the pages for him. But it doesn't mean that they don't know it.
Right.
They probably would know it if you drop the music, they would still play. But in chamber music, that is tradition that allows you to keep music on. So yeah, I need to do research. How did it started and why?
Why it continues? Like a tradition.
But I can understand that because you don't play the melodies for like pianist. He plays obligato and sometimes he plays some solo parts. But like I said, they probably know it more or less by heart, even though they keep music on. But it's ridiculous for me in improvised music such as jazz.
Right.
Usually, knock on the wood, I could remember the music from one rehearsal. If we have rehearsal and even there's original tune, if we have time, I usually take music home or wherever I am,
Study it.
or a hotel room, and I have some coffee, and I analyze, like harmonic movements. I analyze and try to remember it that way. It has happened to my embarrassment a couple of times where I went home in the festival here, for example. I remember it very well. And I took the music with me I'm having lunch and or whatever, something to eat and coffee. And I was looking at the music and and then I went to the gig and I forgot the music home. And there was no time to retrieve it. I mean, even though I didn't live that far away, I said I could drive quickly and get the music, but there was no time. So I managed somehow. It was not perfect, but I bluffed my way through.
Yeah.
Some pieces I remember better than the other ones. Some tunes I knew. Some tunes I had to listen to the bass player and kind of work my way around. So it happened a couple of times when you're trying to learn the music away from the band, and then to your embarrassment you forgot the music somewhere. You got enough of it. You got in your dome,
Right, to at least know what you're doing.
Yeah, to get you through the gig.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you planning on playing with the band that you're going to record with? I know these guys you've recorded with before that you're going to record this new record with. Are you going to go play some gigs before you go into the studio, or do you know?
No, there are no gigs, unfortunately. No, we just played not long ago. I played with that band, and I played with the same drummer but different bass player. We played. There is an extended gig in Stockholm. It's a very beautiful restaurant. It's on top of the building. It overlooks all Stockholm. It's like a kind of luxury place. They have nice piano, and they want to have jazz music. What's interesting, they want to feel that it's jazz music. So they told me they don't want to have, as opposed to what we talked, they don't want to see any sheet music.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want any music on the bandstand. So, and the volume is low. But there's enough people, and it's very long, particularly on a Friday night. It's a long gig.
Mm.
Yeah, you need to know a lot of tunes, which I do. So I'm kind of perfect for that kind of gig. Lots of younger guys, they were telling me, they complained that the people don't have enough repertoire to hold it, because sometimes you need to, like Friday night, it's almost like 5 hours.
Wow, that's a long time.
Yeah, it's like 5 sets of music, which I can do in my sleep. It's no problem at all. It's just one thing follows the other. If I decide to play like a Jobim tune, I know like maybe 30 or 40 like this.
You know all the melodies, everything, all the changes, everything.
Yeah, everything. So one thing leads to another. And the bass player, he's got a great ear, so he can follow any tune. Doesn't matter, any tune, any key, anything, So if I'm thinking about Richard Rogers' tune, then it follows. In Japan, one time they asked me for Richard Rogers' tune. My sidemen were complaining because I did the whole concert with just Richard Rogers' tunes.
Oh, the whole thing.
The whole thing. Because they asked me, they put a request, can you play some Richard Rogers tune? I'm just starting playing it, they kept coming.
You just kept remembering them all? Yeah.
Well, they kept coming, I don't, certain things I know consciously, okay? Because I've played them, like, you can name My Funny Valentine, My Romance, I don't know, there's a bunch of Richard Rogers tunes, that everybody plays. But then other tunes start coming in my conscience, and I just kept playing.
Yeah.
And you need a bass player with the good ears. Fortunately, I had, so they just followed, and so everybody loved it. And if they ask me Coltrane tunes, I could play many, many Coltrane tunes. Mm. If they can ask me Cedar Walton tunes, I know about 30 Cedar Walton tunes, Because when I studied somebody who, Monk is the same thing. I know maybe 40, 50 Monk tunes. I never really counted. But, I mean, they are kind of in a dome, in a conscience.
So you can play, hours.
I can play hours and weeks without repeating any tune.
That's incredible.
That's what we used to do at Bradley's, and that's what I learned from those masters. Hank Jones and Red Mitchell, they played week or 2 weeks, they played at Bradley's without repeating. They did repeat, actually, a couple of tunes. They cheated. But for the most part, and they had to play like 4 sets. Mm. This is not a concert with just one with just one or even two sets. They played 4 sets a night.
Wow.
And I remember that very well. They used to come, and people used to come with pieces of paper and suggest because they tried to keep it up through the 2 weeks without repeating. I did some suggestions. I told Hank a couple of tunes that I wanted to hear him play. But even more so than somebody like Hank Jones or Tommy Flanagan, there were people like Dave McKenna. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
Yeah, I know him.
Dave McKenna, he knows so many tunes. I mean, he knew so many tunes. It's incredible. And he used to do things like this. He used to have a theme, like if he thinks of the water, so he start playing like Red Sails and Sunset and My Sheep, and I Covered the Water from
everything. Yeah,
everything. The whole set is one theme.
That's pretty cool.
Whatever it is.
Yeah.
He would put them all together. It would be and the next set would be some other theme.
Is that when looking at making records in the future? Have you thought about doing like a tribute album to one particular pianist that you?
Well, I did one tribute to Tommy Flanagan because my friend in Japan, who's crazy as I am, crazy about Tommy Flanagan, he asked me to do it. But I don't think it was a very big success. I don't know how much it's sold. To me, let's be honest. I decided to go the whole route. I learned some of those tunes I knew, some of the tunes specific arrangements and stuff like this, because I wanted to do it exactly as Tommy played. The arrangements, not the solos, of course, but arrangements with his harmonies and everything. So I had to learn a fair amount of new material, so it would be interesting. And I also had to do it in New York with the rhythm section of guys that used to play with him, like Kenny Washington and Peter Washington. They used to be in his rhythm section for like years. Okay, particularly Peter. Sometimes the drummers change, but I think Kenny played a fair amount, few years. So they heard Tommy at his best playing these arrangements night after night, okay? And then somebody like me comes in and tries to do a tribute playing the same arrangements, without any rehearsals, just going to studio and trying to play because they knew the arrangement. I know that they knew it. I don't need to write. So that's a good part because I didn't need to rehearse with them. Depending, of course, depending on how well they remember it. Peter remembered it a bit better than Kenny because he was longer, and he was in the latter period with Tommy, because Kenny left and Louis Nash took over for the latter part of Tommy's life. So Peter remembered, but they both remember it. Of course, it all comes back. But I needed to kind of compete with their memories of Tommy playing it at his best. So I was not happy with myself, to be completely honest. I need maybe to listen back to it, but I didn't do what I wanted to do, because I wanted to play better than, I don't know if I could do better than Flanagan, but I needed to do it in the same spirit, but maybe because I didn't have to create this arrangement, so I should be able to play, I thought I should be able to play better. When you created things, like sometimes I'm thinking about maybe a little bit arrangement. The time you spend with these arrangements, maybe you don't have time to perfect it on the piano. As when you're having your free hands to do it. So it's always dangerous, particularly making a tribute to somebody who is well established.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Unless you want to do something radically different, okay? So if you want to do like a fusion arrangement of Monk tunes.
Right. Yeah.
So if you could recreate everything but make it completely different, then maybe.
Yeah. It's not. You're not going to be compared side by side with that.
Yeah.
You have. There's more leeway.
I don't. If I do tribute, I don't want to change it too much. I want the people to think about it, but I'm not sure that. I'm not sure I'm so crazy about all these tributes.
Yeah.
I'm always reminded that those people we're talking about, like let's say Tommy Flanagan. Tommy Flanagan, of course, just to take him as an example, that's a good idea. I need to get some water. He was like a walking encyclopedia of jazz piano. He absorbed so many things from Bud Powell, so many things from Monk, so many Ted Dameron, all those things, and Thad Jones, and all those things were in his repertoire under his fingers. But he was not paying particularly tribute to anybody.
Right.
The whole playing is tribute to people that were before us. Without announcing, I'm playing now tribute. That's what these people do now. Tribute to Billie Holiday, and making tribute to Ella, making tribute to Bill Evans.
Mm-hmm.
Only it's not going to sound like Bill Evans. It's not. There's nobody like Bill Evans.
Right.
You can play the same tunes, maybe even play with some people that used to play with him,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not going to come out the same. So I'm a bit against the specific tributes.
Right. Just pick a tune from this person, a tune from that person, that kind of thing.
It's always, I'm paying tribute to them when I'm playing, because it's all there. All those great pianists, and not only pianists, all those great masters that I'm listening to, they all here and here in my heart and in my fingers, and so whatever I can do, it's still there. I don't need to specifically. Like I said, I tried because they asked me for it.
Mm-hmm.
And of course I love Tommy Flanagan, so why not?
Right.
Actually, I think he's still very, very underrated.
Mm.
To me, lots of people maybe because he didn't write that much. Maybe. So it's difficult to grab onto something that he played and make a tribute of that. Because I noticed there's a lot of people playing Cedar's tunes, lots more than I remembered. Now many people try to play, but because he wrote stuff, so you could play you could play Bolivia, you could play some other things that he wrote. So it's kind of a tribute. When you play the person's tunes. But I don't notice that anybody does that with like Hank Jones or Tommy Flanagan. Maybe because they weren't writers. Maybe. There is one guy though in Osaka, Japan. He has a club which is named after Tommy Flanagan's first record, Overseas. The club is called Overseas. And the whole club is like a shrine to Tommy Flanagan.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
So this guy, he learned all the tunes that Tommy played. And he recorded all the tunes. As soon as Tommy recorded the record, he recorded the same tunes. Yeah, and he's got like books with his tunes. Unfortunately, he's not playing as well, of course. Who does? But his whole club it's like a great Tommy Flanagan museum.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I've been there.
Yeah, I'd like.
He didn't let me play there, but I was there. He didn't ask me to play.
I got a couple of new records, Vladimir. I wanted to show you. I got this.
Oh yeah.
Barry Harris, and I had
I used to have that double album. Yeah.
there's a musician here in Birmingham. His name is Danny Harper. He's a trumpet player. He played in New York for some time, and
Right.
his brothers
Right.
played up there. Anyways, he's big into Barry Harris, and I think next week I'll have his conversation on. But he was talking about the way that Barry Harris was had this different view of jazz theory, and
Yes.
anyways, I thought it was pretty fascinating, and so I was listening to this the other day, and he's not very well known. I mean, relatively speaking.
I can talk about Barry. Let me get something to drink.
Sure. I need a drink too.
Yeah, it's good to drink.
So, yes. So about Barry Harris.
About Barry Harris, he's made his reputation as a teacher. Barry Harris is as they call him, keeper of the flame, keeper of the bebop tradition. And many people studied with him already in Detroit when he was a young fellow. He somehow grasped the principles of jazz playing, particularly bebop, and he could theorize. He could explain to people how to play them. Something I don't do. He had. I don't subscribe to all his theories. He's got a lot of theories, and he's got a lot of rules, which I think it's anathema in jazz music. Rules and regulations. He had a lot of things that you're not supposed to do or not supposed to play. And I think you can do anything, and well, not anything, but everything that
Right.
makes musical sense. But he has a lot of rules. You're not supposed to do this. You're not supposed to play this note against that note, and this scale against this scale, and so he's got a lot of rules, and he's got a lot of students following those things. But I don't see too many great people that came out of his. The teacher only as good as his students. So in the beginning, he had people like Charles McPherson, who studied with him, and Lonnie Hillier, who was a trumpet player. They used to play they used to play together. Probably on this album, if there is a record newer than new, they had quintet records when both Charles McPherson, young fellows, they made a couple of records. I think there's one live record from Five Spot maybe, or some other place in New York, where McPherson and Lonnie Hillier. Lonnie Hillier was a young also from Detroit that played a lot like Dizzy. So Barry taught them, but they were very intelligent guys that didn't know any theories. They didn't know chords. So I guess that's what he was teaching them, the chords and scales and things like this. So when I came to New York for the first time to visit, I wanted to study with Barry Harris, because to me he was like a guru kind of a person, and I wanted to know more about bebop piano. So I called him up. I don't think he knew anything about me. Later on, Clifford Jordan introduced me to him, but at that point I just introduced myself and said to him that I wanted to. I think maybe I got his number from Clifford, and I said I wanted to study with him. And he told me he doesn't give private lessons, but I was welcome to come to his class. So I did. I went, and I was there for like 2 or 3 hours, and he was mostly talking. Not about music. I mean about music, but about different musicians and theories and stuff like this. And he showed in this whole lesson or lecture, he showed one scale that I already knew, but I didn't have. He had the name for it. I didn't have the name for it. But he showed it, the scale, and he had everybody. There was a lot of like saxophone players and guitar players and all, and they were all playing this scale. ad infinitum. And then, but mostly he was talking about other musicians, criticizing basically other teachers and things like this. And then, at that point I had maybe from 5 to 10 Barry Harris records at home that I studied. And so when the girl came with some kind of hat or whatever for contribution from me, I said, I already gave. I bought lots of his records, so didn't want to give anything. Anyway, so I was disappointed because, it's a big class and mostly of people who were beginners and they don't know from anything. And he mostly uses his class for his philosophies. Maybe that was just special, his class, I don't know. But I wanted to have... I don't want to hear from scales and chords from him. I wanted to be near the master and, just to be around person who played with all these people and get inspiration that way from him. I didn't need to, I can get these theoretical things from the record and from the music theory books. I don't need him for that. I wanted to be inspired, and he plays something, I could play something and exchange ideas that way. And if he tells me some things I need to be working on, that will help in my professional life, So that's basically what I needed from him, but he wouldn't do that. So I guess he never did any private. But Barry is one of those people who is like a guru. Like I said, he's had a lot of influence on a lot of people once they've in his circle.
Especially that bebop,
Yeah, well, of course, bebop, but it's even that word is large. I mean, Thomas Flanagan and Cedar Walton and those people, they also play bebop, but they don't have this hardcore circle of followers that are doting on him and holding to his every word,
like a tradition, like a school of Barry Harris, right?
More so, it's more like a sect. It's more like a religious sect.
Yeah. Well, you'll have to watch. Not this week, but the week after, I have Danny Harper on, so you'll have to watch that and see because it's interesting because he goes into.
Did I hear that name from you, or do I know this name from some?
Well, he played up in New York. He may have been there around your time. I don't know, but his two brothers played. His two brothers, the Harper brothers, played.
Yeah, I think I know that name.
But he played trumpet. He hung around with Freddie Hubbard, and Art Farmer and those guys for a while before going back to Atlanta. And his two brothers stayed up there. The Harper brothers, they did.
Oh, the Harper brothers.
Yeah, so it's those two. It's the brother of the.
He's a brother of
Narton
and what's the name of Phil Harper?
I think that's their name. The two. So those two played together in their band. And then Danny was a trumpet player, but he didn't play with them.
He's a brother. He's one of the brothers. Okay, right. I know. I played with both of Phil Harper and Weinhardt. Yeah, I know those two.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, but yeah, there's a whole conversation with him talking. He really subscribes to Barry Harris's theory and the whole bebop, but it's not called the bebop scale. It's a minor sixth and all.
Yes, the minor sixth. I'm familiar with all.
Yeah, and all that. So anyway, it was interesting.
Why not? If it helps, listen. I'm not deep into that, but if it helps you to play, now I don't. I don't stick to any. When I play my solo, I don't stick to any rules. I can. Let's say this. How to explain this? I don't think out my solos in advance.
Right.
So I don't have a pattern to play, and at the same time saying, "Oh, I'm going to play this scale against that chord, and that's how I'm going to do it." I don't have that kind of system. I play melodically. I'm not thinking of scales when I play it. I'm
So
thinking
you
of
don't. I got you.
phrases and melodies. I'm not thinking of particular scale to play. Maybe it comes into play when you play it, subconsciously.
But you don't think
But
about it.
I don't think, and I don't think about my solos in advance.
Now,
So
when
I
you
don't-
started, did you do that? When you started playing and learning,
No,
did you
never.
learn scales?
I
You
never
didn't?
did that. I never theorized. I learned later on about all these names. I still lots of terms that people using that come from schools. I still I'm a little foggy about when they say, like, I understand in theory when they say like drop 2 or drop 6 or drop whatever, or say upper harmonies. So I have no idea. I remember the story. This one saxophone player, he went to take a lesson from Sunny Steed, and he wanted a specific lesson on how to play Cherokee because he heard Sonny play night after night, and he said to Sonny, "So you think I have to work on 251?" Sonny said, "What's that?"
Yeah.
He'd never heard of 251. He just played
Right.
in every 251 in every key, but he never heard this
Yeah.
term. Yeah, so it's all these technical terms. Yeah, I know all that because quite a few people in St. Petersburg, in my hometown, because Barry came and taught. They brought him to Russia a few times, to Moscow and St. Petersburg, and he taught classes there. So there are people who are very, very faithfully following his theories. And there's one guy, friend of mine, good pianist, who is teaching Barry's theories to other people. So far, I don't see any great results. I would go as far. You can tell that to your Danny Harper. I could go as far as to say that Bud Powell and even Bird himself didn't know anything about those theories. Lester Young didn't know about anything about major 6, minor 6, or diminished 6 thing. He would be surprised to hear that.
Yeah.
I think Bud Powell would be surprised to hear the theoretical part that some people absorb from his playing and apply to their own playing. Maybe he did it automatically when he played, but he didn't have, so maybe Charlie Parker wouldn't pass the Barry Harris test.
Yeah. Do you think there's some value, though, to understand why bebop sounds the way it sounds from a theoretical standpoint? Why does the bebop, that phrasing and the way it goes, why does it sound the way it is, and why do those notes make sense? From a theoretical standpoint, where you can learn that structure from that, and then.
Okay, let's see what I think about it. Quite honestly, I think lots of people are looking for somebody to give them something to grab onto. If you're teaching, you need to have some kind of a theory. You cannot say, "Oh, just learn some solos and sing and blah blah blah," and so that's not concrete enough. So they need to have some concrete things that they're teaching. So that's what Barry does, and also he's a very persuasive person. He is a very influential person in his way of talking and his way of teaching. So people are gravitating to that kind of person who seems to be knowing exactly what's going on, and he promised to make you a great jazz player if you're following these rules. So they need somebody who says, if you are following this thing with me, you're going to be maybe not great, but good jazz players. Mm-hmm. And of course, if they didn't know anything before that, just being with him and getting some theories, there's a lot of on the internet. There's a lot of his classes, which I looked at all of them. There's a lot of videos from his classes in Holland, where there was a jazz school, and there's a lot of videos of that, where he teaches all people, you know, when he takes one phrase and he makes everybody to repeat it, and then they transpose it to another key, and then they try to use it in another tune and stuff like this. So it's wonderful. And it keeps all those people off the streets. You know, they keep him busy. They are practicing, they're doing something. He's an inspirational figure. So how can I say it's bad?
Right.
It's
it
great.
gives them a foundation to work from,
It gives
right?
inspiration to people to study. However, I don't subscribe to particular theories of the scales and the rigid patterns. And like he says, for example, he says he doesn't want you to play this is something that we do, comping with the left hand and playing solos with your right hand. Right? He says he wants to hear more of people playing full chords. Something like this. And so he doesn't, when he says like somebody played for him Green Dolphin Street, say you all play the same. Oh, he hates that. So he wants to hear, you know, full chords. Yeah, that's what I saw in some videos. He was criticizing. But then in that case, you don't like Ahmad Jamal, you don't like Red Garland, you don't like Bill Evans. Everybody is bullshit then, according to him.
Interesting. So, yeah. So then so it's one
Oh,
thing.
he excludes all those other people. I mean, I like to play these full chords as well. And, you know, particularly, you know, this kind of things, that's good.
Right. But not always.
I don't exclude these other things. But he said, oh, I'm tired of hearing everybody play that. Don't play like this. I don't want to hear that.
Which is fine for him if he wants to do that, but that would be his own.
But I mean, then you exclude all these great people that I'm talking about. So the people are a little bit confused if they went there when they listen to, say, Red Garland and they like him, or Wynton Kelly or somebody, but he says you shouldn't be doing that. Then they are confused.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
I don't. If I teach, I don't want for people to be confused. All I'm saying, not excluding these other methods. This is good. This other thing is good. People who follow McCoy Tyner, friends, they all want to play just 4 chords. Everything is, you know. And so pentatonic scales and all that. So that's also good, but not only that way.
Mm-hmm.
So we're living in a good time when you can absorb things from older masters. You can listen to Earl Hines, you can listen to Teddy Wilson, you can listen to Art Tatum, you can listen to Bill Evans, and you can listen to McCoy Tyner. Why not? And you can use all that. It's not forbidden. I don't forbid anything. Mm-hmm. Just as long as it's in a good taste, it swings and stuff. You can incorporate 4ths or 5ths or 3rds. It doesn't matter. You know, it's all good. That's my thing.
Yeah, you know? Right.
But I think when you are teaching class, you have to grab to some theories, some definite things, and so if you have a theory, then that must exclude some other things.
And
that's what I got from his students.
Yeah, interesting.
They're a bit sometimes confused because Barry said that's not cool to do that.
Yeah, right. So it would be definitely something to learn as one way of playing, but not the only way of playing.
Definitely,
so you've got a foundation of bebop or whatever.
He's a master. He's a master. He was the master of playing, and he played some fantastic things before he had a stroke. I heard him play some great things, some of the best music. Yeah, I heard in New York. Sometimes he played. Listen, one time he was playing at Bradley's, and he had Billy Higgins and Ray Drummond. I was there a whole week almost, and my wife was at the last weeks of pregnancy. Right? And so I told her, "You must come. and bring the baby to Bradley's to hear because Barry is playing super fantastic, and it was so full, and she was big as a house.
She came.
Yeah, and yeah, she came. I took her. I said, you must come because Barry is on fire. It's really fantastic. This whole week they were playing, particularly with Billy Higgins. You know, Billy Higgins is a drummer that inspired almost anyone. You know, so they were really cooking that week. So I wanted my first newborn already here in the stomach. Hear that. Never mind that now. She's listening to pop music anyway now. So that's... Hey, funny story I can tell you about Barry. That's just before we were leaving New York, we knew already that we were going to move. Barry was playing at the Museum of Modern Art, the concert. And so we came there. There was not that many people, but all the tables were taken. So we're there, sitting close to the piano. He started playing. He plays like maybe 2 or 3 tunes. Then he starts, Autumn in New York. Okay? Everybody who was sitting around the piano, every table, it was like Woody Allen movie. Suddenly they got up and started singing. You couldn't believe it. It was like in Woody Allen movie, you know.
Like they scripted it.
Yeah, everybody who was in the audience, was his choir, his students.
Wow, that's crazy.
And Lena, she never witnessed this kind of thing. She was, well, I was surprised as well because I didn't expect that. Suddenly, everybody in the room started singing. Autumn in New York. No, 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 no. You know, that was like in the movies. That was incredible. You know, Barry used to play Sundays at Bradley's. Regular Sundays. It was he did it for quite a long time. And it's funny because the Bradleys, they usually had piano bass duos. But he skipped the bass and had Leroy Williams, who was his regular drummer. He had drums. I think sometimes, most of the time, he had bass player as well. Even though at that time, the drums were forbidden because of the stupid cabaret law. But he didn't care. Barry was always, kind of independent because he was staying with Baroness.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was like Monk. When Monk died, Barry.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah, he was staying with Baroness, and Baroness was subsidizing his concerts, and she even opened the club. There was a called Jazz Cultural Center, where he had his classes and played there sometimes. I also played there, but piano was horrid. Yeah, I was so surprised they couldn't get better piano at that place. I mean, piano player owning this place, and he couldn't get good piano. That was terrible. But anyway, so he was financially always, he didn't care about money at all because he didn't need to make a living, apparently. So the rules didn't apply to him. So he was playing every Sunday and playing with the trio or just a duo with drums, because Leroy was his most faithful drummer. He always played with him, unless he could get Billy Higgins or somebody like this sometimes. But anyway, the club was always full. It was packed, but it was packed with his students, his choir and students, and they are standing there with one Coca-Cola or orange juice. So the paying customers couldn't get in. So there was no paying customers that could get in. It was always packed, and so finally Bradley had to let him go because business-wise it didn't make any sense.
Interesting, yeah. You couldn't sell any drinks.
No, they couldn't sell anything because the guys were standing there without buying anything, or they would have maybe Coca-Cola or orange juice. That's it. They didn't have any money, and there was at that time there was no cover charge or any charge at the door. You know, when I started coming to New York, in Bradley's there was no charge at the door, and there was one drink minimum at the bar. At the table I think there was a $5 maybe minimum.
Yeah, so you had to buy something. That's it.
Yeah, 5 or maybe if I'm lying, maybe 7. So but there were some waiters that were quite pushy. And if you at the bar also you had one drink minimum. But if you don't watch out, the bartender would take very quickly your drink away and said, yeah, you had to watch your drink. You had to milk it.
Otherwise, it's gone. You got to buy another one.
All this stuff, because they would take very quickly and say, what do you want to drink now? They hustle lots of people that they didn't know. It was a very tight circle. If they didn't know you, like I took, I'm sure you know Malgur Miller.
Yep.
Well, Malgur Miller was a good friend of mine. I met him when he came to Finland with Mercer Ellington band, and he was a young piano player just in that band. I didn't even know he could play or not because he was just reading at the band. And I took him at the jam session in Helsinki, but he didn't play. He didn't want to play. He said, you go ahead and play. I listened. So I wasn't sure if he could play or not. Then when I came to New York, he was playing with Woody Shaw, and of course I could hear that he was on top of the situation, particularly with his comping. Anyway, I took him to Bradley's because he was not really part of that circle. And they were hustling him for drinks. He was kind of maybe a little bit poor at that point. He didn't, he just wanted to have orange juice or something, and they were hustling him. I said, stop, he's a good player, stop pushing him, because at that point I already knew this bartenders and everybody there at Bradley's. They were very, very cliquey there.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, if they didn't know you, they could treat you rough. And of course, there are some people like Jaco Pastorius, who was coming there and he didn't behave. They threw him on his head on the sidewalk. Yeah, they did with several people. They threw out Freddie Hubbard. Freddie Hubbard came in and he was drunk or high or whatever, and he was. I was there because I was there most of the nights, and he was playing, but then he started banging his trumpet against the piano.
Oh.
And that's a sacred thing for in Bradley's, a piano. And so bartender, this big a guy called Bob, he came and said, "Don't do that." And so he played again, and he started again banging. So without saying anything, they just threw him out. And I loved them for that because they didn't have any respect for
They didn't
anybody.
care who it was.
Behave, didn't respect the place or didn't respect the piano or anything. They didn't care if you were Freddie Hubbard or Miles Davis. They would just throw you out. That's it. And Bradley, he was a rough customer. He was a former U.S. Marine. He was in Japan.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no, he was a strong guy. One time I remember somebody threatened him with a knife. And he just took this guy, and there was a long bar. The whole Bradley is like long bar. And this guy went through the whole length of the bar to the door and threw him out. Yeah, he was a big, rough guy, Bradley. He played quite good, He didn't have any technique, but he had nice chords. He studied all the piano players that used to play there. There was a whole kind of a school, late night school for piano players. They all were exchanging ideas. That's why I gravitated towards New York, because I could learn so much. After hours, everybody stayed. They were closing the door, and the musicians stayed, and the piano players were showing things to each other and would play. Sometimes they would play all through the night until the next morning. For the love of playing, nobody was getting paid for anything.
Right. Hey, Vladimir, who were some of the piano players you thought were that showed you things or were very open to showing you stuff? Was there anybody in particular that you really enjoyed listening to or learning from there?
Definitely.
I'm sure.
Practically, I heard practically everybody who played there because Bradley, very rarely he had somebody who was mediocre. Basically, the roster of the pianists who played there, who played there, they were all at least good. Okay, but of course his favorites were Hank Jones and Tommy Flanagan. And so this was like we're going like A list. You have Hank Jones and Tommy Flanagan, and perhaps after that you had Cedar Walton and Barry Harris and Kenny Barron. Of course, I'm forgetting Jimmy Rolls was also very, very close to the top list because Jimmy Rolls knew a lot of special tunes, particularly Strayhorn. And lots of tunes associated with Billie Holiday, because he used to play for Billie Holiday. And Jimmy Rolls also knew a lot of inside tunes that people don't play. And Bradley was all for that. He was into that thing very deeply. So I needed to learn all those things. I said to myself, I practiced all those things because I wanted to be a part of that. Besides, I loved it. Basically, my reason was I loved it, and it was something that people who were inside circle at Bradley's, they were all into that. So I learned a bunch of Strayhorn tunes and Duke tunes that nobody really knew, because Tommy Flanagan and Jimmy Rolls, they played all those things. And that made all the musicians ask, what is that tune? What is that? That sounds so fantastic. What is that? I never heard that. But they knew. That was particularly a specialty of Jimmy Rolls and Tommy Flanagan. They would discover some tunes because not only they have played for many great singers, so they retained those things from accompanying lots of singers, and they had obviously had fantastic memory because they could recall, particularly Jimmy Rolls. He knew so many tunes. And while he was not really a virtuoso, he didn't bedazzle you with runs and stuff like this. He had a very, very special sound and harmonies that... So Bradley was all into that. He was staying with these people. First, he hired them. Then he made them part of the family. They probably were... I was not the part of that, but they were most of them were getting high with him. They were going to the kitchen in his office and people were doing coke and shit like this. Yeah. So, I was not into that, but somehow I was still part of the family without doing drugs. So I congratulate myself on that because I had genuine love for the place and for the music, so they could see that. I came to New York with desire to play at Bradley's, to be a part of that, to be a part of this thing, So this were the people that particularly A-list. And then there were, of course, these people like John Higgs and Kirk Lightsey, and there was occasionally playing Stanley Cowell and lots of great pianists, particularly everybody. And sometimes very famous people like maybe Oscar Peterson or Finis Newburn, they would come and sit in. Lots of people, George Shearing, lots of people would sit in, even though they would never work there because Bradley couldn't afford them. Or they wouldn't want to play that because it's a rough gig. You need to play 4 sets, and it ends at 3 in the morning. Starts 9:45, and it officially ends about 3, but many times it goes over. Of course, when I worked with Ron Carter, he was finished exactly at 3, and he would not budge. Like 5 to 3, he would say, play the theme. And 3 o'clock exactly, he was zipping his bass.
Yeah. Time to go. Got other stuff.
Yeah, except for the last night of the week, then we would take a beer together and we talked. He would hang out the last night. Hang out a little bit, but he usually had a class that he was teaching in the morning, so I can understand that. But he was very exact with his things, and we only played 3 sets with him because he wouldn't play 4 sets. So it was long sets and long breaks. People would come to want to hear me, and they would sit and wait. When do you start to play? And I was like embarrassed. Oh my God, because we needed to space it.
Right, so you could take
Time
it the
was
whole
still
time.
the same, but he wanted to do only 3 sets. So because that's Ron, he always sets his own rules everywhere. But anyway, back to the piano players. Yeah, those were the guys, the heroes that everybody wanted to hear. All the piano players got there, and Hank Jones. Sometimes he would be lazy and he would make everybody else to play. I remember we were like 7 or 8 guys. He would open the set, and then he would make everybody come and play. And he would stand at the bar and listen to everybody say, "Hey, sound great." Yeah.
Of course,
Barry did that on Christmas Eve. Barry was playing there with Red Mitchell on bass. And Barry has composed this tune called Nascimento, kind of a Brazilian tune that he knew a guy, a friend of his, Brazilian guy called Nascimento. Not Milton Nascimento, the composer, but another guy. So he composed that tune, relatively easy. So he made every piano player in the house play it.
Play it.
Yeah, so we all played it. And Red was playing bass. He was sweating because there was like 15 piano players or 12 piano players playing.
Did he give his opinion? Did he tell people what he thought of the version?
No, he was dancing. It was like Christmas Eve. It was a kind of carnival at Bradley's. It was packed with people, lonely souls that had no family and had no... Yeah, that's what's fantastic thing about New York. You never felt lonely. You always could go to Bradley's because they were open seven nights a week, and going into very early hours, it felt like a family there. So in Finland, it was a murder when it was a Christmas. Everything is closed, everything is dead, like here now. Well, now I don't care, but when I was young,
right.
You don't have. There's nothing to do. But in New York, you could always go and you could sit in, and you could go to Vanguard and sit in. You could do a lot of things, regardless if it's Hanukkah or it's New Year's Eve. It doesn't matter. You could always find places to play, people to meet, music to hear. So I love New York for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Really, nothing closes. Nothing. There is nothing. Always something going on.
Yeah, that's not.
At least it was at the time when I was there. And any kind of food also late at night. If you want after the gig, you want to go somewhere and have something. Well, probably in Birmingham, maybe you have the same thing also. Things open late.
Not here. It's pretty. It's not so much around 10, 11 o'clock. It's done on Friday and Saturday. You'll have a couple that are open late, but not many. And we don't have any jazz here, jazz clubs, really, so to speak.
No, I'm not talking jazz. I mean, even the food you want to have,
Yeah, not much.
You get off. I remember we got off when I was playing with Red Mitchell. We got off 3 o'clock in the morning, maybe 3:15, and we went to Jewish Delicatessen, like 4 or 5 in the morning.
Yeah.
And he had like a whole table. He ordered so much food, I couldn't believe it. Like 5 o'clock in the morning, he was stuffing himself before he would go to sleep.
Yeah.
Big table.
Yeah, we don't have too much. We got a couple diners here. You got to drive all the way across town. There's not much. Yeah, for that kind of stuff. What about McCoy Tyner? Did you run across him? McCoy Tyner?
Yes. What about him?
I was just wondering, was he one of the guys that went to Bradley's or one of the guys you ran across a lot?
No, I never seen McCoy at Bradley's, no. But McCoy, I met him a few times. And in fact, one time I was part of a jam session band in Blue Note, and he had his band, his big band, playing there. So we started playing, and then McCoy comes, and he and he gets on stage. I said, "Wow, what's going on?" He forgot his briefcase with music. He gets behind me and he said, "Hey, you sound great, and he takes his briefcase and leaves. Yeah.
He's definitely got his own style of playing.
Definitely. Oh, yeah. I love McCoy. I'm still studying him.
Yeah, I had Benito Gonzalez on the other week.
Yeah,
who did a tribute to him. He was interesting to talk to.
Yeah, I know Benito Gonzalez. The drummer that I play sometimes with in Finland. he plays with him. Italian drummer, he plays with him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah, but
big
I
into
mean, why do I
McCoy.
need tribute to him? I listen to McCoy, but really for me, the later period of McCoy Tyner is not for me. He's banging too much on the piano. Early McCoy Tyner I love. Up to the time, with the Coltrane, all these things. But later on, less so, because he was really too percussive. And in the beginning, all those trio records he did for Impulse. You know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay. Yep.
Those trio records that
Yep.
he did. Those still are worth studying. It's fantastic, and he had beautiful touch and everything. And of course with Coltrane too, particularly the ballads and the Johnny Hartman album, you could still hear that. It's quite unbelievable. He said he never played with the singer before he did that album with Johnny Hartman.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
The Coltrane. Yeah.
I cannot believe that he comes from Philadelphia, and it seems strange that he wouldn't be sometimes playing with some singers. But maybe he meant recording. I don't know. Maybe
Yeah.
he meant recording.
Recording. Yeah.
Because he must have been in Philadelphia, must have been playing with some singers. Impossible to avoid, if you're at the session. They
Right.
keep coming.
Yeah. That record's an
Singers
incredible
Unlimited.
record. That's an incredible record with Johnny Hartman.
That's
That's a
fantastic
classic.
record, of course.
Classic.
But Johnny Hartman, now I've studied Lush Life through the years, and I want to play it now on this new album.
Oh, really?
And of course, yeah, I want to do it because it's time. And I re-listen now closely to Johnny Hartman, and he gets some melody wrong. Doesn't matter, I mean, but I know they did. I'm not talking about harmonies because that's up to everybody, Of course, Strayhorn had perfect harmonies. You don't need to change anything. But the melody, lots of people doing melody wrong.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, lots of people do it wrong.
So
And
you're
I'm not
gonna-
like Gary. I'm not saying that
That's
the only way is Billy Strayhorn way. But I think Billy Strayhorn way more or less is the right way. Is the only way, But of course, different people do different things on that. But it's difficult. A tune like this is so beautiful. It's difficult to play any solos.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The melody is so strong. If you just play the melody with the right kind of harmonies and stuff like this, it's almost enough. I intend to play maybe a little bit of solo. I haven't decided if I should do it solo piano or should do it trio, or maybe like my wife suggested, maybe I should do both.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll see. We'll see how it's going to come out. But I definitely have always had a feeling for Strayhorn music.
Vladimir,
When I started playing it, I started learning it because Jimmy Rolls, like I said, Jimmy Rolls and Tommy played it, and that was way before general jazz community had discovered Strayhorn. Lots of people didn't even know that Strayhorn was writing all those tunes. Most of them thought that Duke wrote those tunes. Lots of people still don't know Take the A Train or Satin Doll.
right?
Billy Strayhorn wrote. Most of the people still don't know. Musicians announce these things. I'm surprised. But anyway, I remember at some point Strayhorn tunes came into the fashion. Joe Henderson recorded that. Then when I was working in Paris with Art Farmer, at that point I studied maybe 7 or 8 Strayhorn tunes. Some tunes were more or less known, but I like Passion Flower and Isfahan and Strange Feeling. Anyway, there was about 7 or 8 tunes were not generally known, and I was showing them to Art. Kind of slowly, showing the melodies, and I said, "This would be perfect for you." And he didn't really. I was disappointed because he didn't really react the way I thought he would say. "Oh, I will go." He didn't jump on it. And then years later, I'm playing with him in New York, and we're playing Isfahan. But now he's playing it in medium tempo, like. So I said, listen, like 5 or 6 or 7 years ago, I showed you this tune, and you were not impressed. He said, yeah, but you played it so slowly. I said, yeah, I was trying to explain it to you. You know, I was trying to explain how the melody goes. I was not going to do. You know, that's what he was doing later on. Oh no. So, yeah. But he later on he did the whole album of Strayhorn tunes.
Yeah, there's a lot to pick
It's
from,
like
right?
almost 10 years after, or whatever, 5, 6, 7 years after I tried to get him to do that.
Yeah.
And so now it's like everybody and his brother playing. They have books now. Jamie Aber sold books with Strayhorn tunes, and when I went to Finland to play with local guys, and I play from school, we played. You know, UMMG, Upper Manhattan Medical Group, which I started playing, you know, like back in early 80s. Before I came to New York, I played already. All those things were in my book already in the late 70s, which is still late because he wrote those things in like 40s of. Mm-hmm. But anyway, I discovered them and I started playing them, so they were in my book. I impressed a lot of bass players that played my book by having those Strayhorn tunes. But people didn't know these tunes. So now I'm playing these tunes, and they're saying, "Hey, this is part of curriculum. It's a part of they study." Did I choose the right word?
The curriculum of what they.
Yeah, it's a part of repertoire in the school. They had to go through this
Right.
to pass
Yeah.
in school. So now it's a part of it's like a regular thing. So they all know now these tunes.
So what is the tune you're going to do on this is on the upcoming record?
Lush Live?
You're going to do that one on this record coming up that you're getting ready to record?
I hope so. Yeah.
Yeah.
If I can get it to my satisfaction.
Yeah.
You know, in studio everything is going to sound different.
Right.
I mean, when I play now, it's once. I mean, I had so many tunes to go through. If I play now like a solo with myself, and sometimes I play it very well. Sometimes I forget something. It's not so good. But a couple of times I played it, and it's beginning to, because I had to make some changes. I also played some of the things wrong because with the time you forget exactly how it goes. You know, it's a long line, and there's a lot of changes. So sometimes you forget. And that's not a tune that you want to forget.
Right.
You know? And so now I went back to a Strayhorn original recording, and I really studied it. Yeah, there is a record, A Peaceful Side, which I had a tape. I recorded that on tape back in Finland, and I took it with me to New York. Because, like I said, I heard Tommy Flanagan and Jimmy Roll, but they playing their own versions. But I wanted to hear the original, the way he played it. So this is it's funny also because he recorded it in Paris. Some tunes has like a vocal group on it. Like in Lush Live, they had certain periods when they go, whoo, you know.
Yeah.
Like, you know, he goes, it used to be it. And they go, in background, just this one chord, or some other, yeah.
So you're going to come up with your own arrangement, but it's going to be based on the original.
Yeah. I don't know if yeah. I may change a couple of things, but I mean in harmonies, not the melody.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the funny thing about it, he recorded it in Paris, just the piano and bass, and like I said, I don't know if they added later on. It's not really a choir, but like maybe it's a choir. But I don't know how many voices is there. They added voices to some tunes. But it's basically him and a French bass player, Michel Gaudrin, that I later on I played with him in Paris. And also important thing, since we're on the subject of that, I was playing that in Paris in the club, and the bass player that played with me, he said, I used to play all those string horn tunes, and he said, there is a guy who is a boyfriend, who was a lover of Billy Strayhorn. I don't know if he said lover or friend or a boyfriend, but he said, there's a guy in Paris here who was a very close friend to Billy Strayhorn. You need to play those tunes for him. So, okay, next day we went there. He was playing in this big hotel. It had been maybe Hilton or Sheraton. So my wife and I and this guy, we went. He introduced me to him. And I played those tunes for him. And he liked tears. Yeah. Because I was really into it at that time. Like I said, I played maybe around 10 or 12 Strayhorn tunes. That they all very, mostly they all very, very romantic and with a tinge of maybe a little bit of bitterness, or it's like unrequited love and things like this, like not really bluesy, but a bit of bluesy, but mostly like down tunes. Very beautiful, but down. Mm-hmm. He wrote very few bright tunes, yeah. Like this. So that's a rain check. That's the only bright tune that I can think of. Of course, maybe the A Train and Satin Dolls. They're more up tunes.
Right.
But that's exception. Basically all his tunes are melancholy, very beautiful but very melancholy. So there's only a few of them that you can do. You don't want to do too many of them.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Let's see. I got a couple of other records to share with you. I wanted a couple of other people. A couple of records I came across that I wanted to share with you. This one I picked up, which he's the only one.
This looks familiar. Who is that?
Jeezy Grice.
Oh yeah, of course. Oh.
Yeah, this has Take the A Train on it too, and all the. But this is the first record I've ever had of him.
Yeah, I don't exactly. I never had that record. Is that that's not a compilation, is it?
I don't think so. I think this is a.
This is the original.
Yeah, it's actually a promo. It's a white label promo that looks like it was given to a radio station, and then it's got Blue Light Caravan is on it, Reminiscing. A Night in Tunisia's on here. Take the A Train.
Is that one band? Is Donald Byrd on that, or Richard Williams? Who's playing trumpet?
Yeah. Let's see. It's got Richard Williams on trumpet, Eddie Costa vibes, Richard Wines on piano, George Duvier on bass, Bob Thomas on drums, and then and then on the other tunes you've got Reggie Workman on it, and
so
then
it's a kind of
so it's kind of a
it's a compilation. Yeah, I knew Richard Wines very well, and I played with. I'm beginning to sound like an old fart, really.
But this
It's
is
a
a great
scary,
record. I really enjoyed this.
listen, it's a scary thing. I'm looking at the. Hey, I know Rain de Graaf too. I used
Yeah,
to
I
have
wanted to
that.
ask you about him.
Yeah, I know him. I knew him very well.
But this I really enjoyed.
Yeah,
This record here I ran across just at the record store, and I wasn't
good
familiar
record.
with it.
Best record he ever did. Listen, anything with Louis Hayes and Sam Jones, gotta be great.
Yeah.
This guy, Rain de Graaf, I think he's still alive. He's an amateur pianist. He's a real bebopper, and he's got like electronic. I think maybe he retired. He must have been up in age now. I don't think he plays anymore. But anyway, he had an electronic equipment store. So I think he had, again, we are back to this thing. If you want to play bebop, you got to have money of your own. Or you have to be. So he had another business. But somehow he was able to invite from time to time famous musicians from States to play with him. And in this case, even recorded. He probably recorded with his own money, those guys. Because, in a... this is timeless.
It's on the Muse Records
It's
label.
on Amuse, yeah. It's on Amuse. I think it originally came on Timeless, the Dutch.
Okay.
Yeah, Amuse kind of licensed it. It was even a different cover. It was cover very cheap view of New York.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think he basically budgeted and paid for it himself, because there was a very good time where people from New York used to tour Europe on a regular basis, either with their own bands they could tour, or sometimes they would come as a single and play, and so he was able to invite some people and was able to organize. But maybe this particular record he went to New York to record.
Yeah, I'm not sure that says where it was recorded.
No, I think he went to New York to record this one.
Yeah. Recorded at Sound Ideas studio in New York City, February 6, 1979. Yeah.
Yeah, he took less expensive way. He didn't bring them to Europe. He went himself to New York. So anyway, he's a gifted. He was he's a gifted amateur. Who I think he doesn't he doesn't read any music. He doesn't play anything else but bebop. What he wants to play, and he was good at that. And this is a wonderful record. I mean, well, of course, all the guys are great. Tom Harrell, super great.
Sam Jones.
And of course, rhythm section. You cannot go wrong with Sam Jones. Just anything with Sam Jones gotta be great. I rate Sam Jones over basically most of the people. Very deep, great sound and time, and it's not a technical bass player like Niels Henning, but a very great groove and very deep sound, even bigger sound than Ray Brown. I had a very good opportunity very good luck to play with him. And if he think about him as opposed to other people, if he didn't know the tune, he wouldn't play it. I mean, guys like George Mraz or Rufus Reid or Ray Drummond or George Duvivier, all those people that I had also a good fortune to play with, they could play anything. Even some young guys that at the time, when not known guys, they could play almost anything, But Sam, if he didn't know, I remember, I was young and stupid, so I would just start tune without telling him anything and stuff like this, and he would look at me and say, "What is this? I don't know this one." So you had to change, because he wouldn't take a chance and embarrass himself by trying to look for it, and he wouldn't do that. So he was one of those people that wouldn't be so adventurous. In fact, I started playing one of his tunes, and he didn't recognize it. He was looking at me. He said, "What is this?" But I said, this is your tune. Because I started, he wrote this tune, Bittersweet. So it's like blues and has a bridge. So I'm starting with the bridge as a intro. That's his tune, right? So I'm starting with the bridge, and he doesn't recognize it. He goes, what is this? I said, it's his tune. So I started, okay, so he catches up on, on this phrase. After this, I play. He didn't play that. He didn't remember that. And when we finished playing, he says, nobody plays my tunes.
That's really...
So that's Sam, yeah. So, yeah, I was so lucky. Can you believe this? And, you know, many times now I'm looking at some articles or some records, and I said, wow, I played with this guy, I played with this guy. At least I met this guy. It's incredible, you know? And I see now on the internet people saying, they're giving themselves credit. They said, I saw Sam Jones once live. And I'm thinking, I saw him many times live and I played with him. So what am I supposed to say?
Yeah, that's incredible.
I'm supposed to be some kind of hero, you know. People are now they praising themselves if they saw Cedar Walton once somewhere.
Right. Yeah.
You know, Cedar Walton spent his 50-year anniversary with me. We were drinking cognac and getting crazy, you know.
Yeah.
Because I stayed I don't know if I mentioned it. When I moved to New York, he fixed me with his buddy who was running a Boomers club in New York, Bob Cooper. So he was the owner of the Boomers club, and Cedar was like a house pianist there. So he fixed me with Bob Cooper's room in his apartment, which was right in the middle of everything, in the middle of right across the street was like, you know, Bleecker Street was right there, and Sweet Basil and the Vanguard and Blue Note, and everything was like stone throw away from where I was staying. On the same street there was Arthur's. Now it's a club where many people played. At the time was like insignificant place, but it's one of the oldest places where even Charlie Parker played.
Wow.
It's Grove Street. So that's where we are.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rain de Graaf. I know.
Yeah,
I know.
that's a good one.
Came many times to New York.
Run across, and then one I've been collecting here lately is Toshiko Akiyoshi, these big band records with Lou Tabakin. Sure. I've been enjoying these. These are quite different. I guess kind of a modern big band type thing, but I really enjoy these. These are something.
Yeah, of course. Of course, I know Lou Tabakin quite well. I played with him many times too. And Toshiko, she was when she was young, she was really fantastic pianist. She was playing very much in Bud Powell's vein. She was probably the most proficient female pianist at the time, particularly coming from Japan. You know,
yeah.
I mean, she was and she was always playing very strongly. But then she started arranging, and I liked the big band. I've heard many times, and of course she came. She and Lou, they came to Finland, and they just two of them. They played with different rhythm sections. I heard them, but she was not. She gave up somehow the piano playing. She was not as good as she was before.
Well, she's like 90. She's still alive, I think, isn't she?
Yeah, she's still
in her 90s.
Yeah. Oh, she's one of the most famous Japanese musicians in Japan. Everybody knows who she is, of course, and deservedly so. I mean, she's her and Sadao Watanabe. Those two are most famous Japanese musicians. They went to America and made themselves known, which is a big thing for any foreigner.
And she played with Mariano, right? Or she was married to him,
wasn't
they
were married. They were married. Yeah.
And then that was kind of more of a bop thing, kind of a...
Yeah. Well, she was very much into Bud Powell. And, of course, Charlie Mariano, from the beginning, he was really into Bird. Of course, later on, he changed completely. And she changed.
Yeah.
So, he started playing more out. But of course, he still had those roots, and he played with Stan Kenton and all this other big bands. But later on, he was involved with fusion, and more avant-garde. And I think he lived in Europe for a while. He played with some fusion musicians.
Yeah.
I never met him. But I knew the guys in Finland. He came to Finland a few times, and he played with some almost rock guys. He played some kind of fusion thing. But he's one of the probably guys that could play anything, read anything, play anything. So,
Yeah, I think some of these musicians, they get tired of doing the same old thing and they want to branch out and try something new, kind of like Miles, would do. So you kind of have certain periods where they go through try out different things, which, I think it's good that a lot of them do that. I'm really enjoying. I'm collecting as I find these, because you can find these very inexpensive. I don't think anybody collects, is looking to collect them. So when I see them, they're like $5, and they're usually in very good shape, and I grab them, and they're usually very, very good listen.
Oh yeah, no, I heard this big band quite a few times. Yeah.
There's some very good playing on it, very good, great solos and all kinds of cool stuff.
Oh yeah, many good players was there. Yeah, right. Talking about trying something new. I heard the story when they were in Stan Kenton's band. They were playing very complicated arrangements and very, very difficult things. And they had like a meeting with the band, and they're saying, we need to try something different. And one of the trumpet players said, why don't we try swinging?
Yeah. He gets a bad rap, doesn't he?
That would be different.
Yeah. Does he? He gets a bad rap, Stan Kenton, with jazz. They for some reason he gets kind of criticized.
I think he had a couple of bands that were really great in swinging. When they had Lee Konitz and Zoot Sims and Stan Levy and Mel Lewis, Shelly Manne, that period probably was very good. But sometimes it's, very heavy sounds.
Yeah. Because he gets a lot of criticism. Brubeck gets a lot of criticism. There's a lot of people that say Brubeck's not playing jazz, but I like a lot of the Brubeck stuff.
Oh, no.
But there's a lot of people that criticize him.
Brubeck was a great musician, and he tried a lot of different things. He was not the most swinging guys. I mean, if you want to look at that. But like Jerry Mulligan said one time, they say, critics criticizing Dave Brubeck for not swinging, but then they praise somebody like Cecil Taylor, who never even wanted to swing.
Right.
So what's the he never even tried to swing. So what is that?
Right. Yeah, a lot of the avant-garde stuff. I mean, obviously this avant-garde jazz doesn't swing. It's not really.
No, they can't.
But I think some of it's still great to listen to.
But like I said, I don't want to hear anything bad about Cecil Taylor, because he is the guy who keeps my fingers.
I listened to that record again, that Live at My Mantra, and I can't remember anything. It's like a new list. Every time I listen to it, it's new, because there's nothing on it that I recognize when I listen to it.
But he was a very nice guy.
Yeah.
And he loved swinging jazz. He couldn't play it, but he loved it. He was always at the Vanguard. He was always at Bradley's. I remember when he got this big Gilmore Prize. He came to Bradley's and he bought vintage Dom Perignon champagne for everybody at the bar. I couldn't believe it. The most expensive Dom Perignon champagne he bought everybody. It was like hundreds of $1,000s he got. I mean, I'm talking old dollars, not.
Yeah, exactly, when they're worth something.
Yeah. Yeah, no, Cecil Taylor, he appreciated me playing for little Jimmy Scott, my accompaniment. And, deservedly so, because I worked hard on being good accompanist. And like I said, Jimmy Scott wasn't always the easiest one, because his ballads were very, very long. You had to have lots of patience to. I met a lot of good musicians that way, playing with Jimmy Scott, because lots of guys came to listen. Tommy Flanagan came, and Kenny Burrell, and many other people came, and lots of celebrities. Madonna came quite a few times because she was a big fan of Jimmy Scott, and she sent she sent a word. I was introduced to her, and she sent a word that said, "Pianist is cute." So I got this. I got this praise from Madonna.
Who were your favorite singers to play with, to play behind? Were there any ones
Ernestine Anderson was one of my.
Oh, yeah, I just got
Of
one of
course,
her
Carmen.
records.
I worked for a short time, but Carmen, of course, it's a classic. But she was a hard. She was a hard one to please. Sometimes she would be difficult. Yeah, she was a moody person. Of course, Carmen, fantastic tunes and everything. But she has very strict arrangements, so there was not much freedom. You had to read. She had very strict book, and you had to read the arrangements, and that was it. Of course, you were allowed to play solos, so that was okay. But arrangements were there. So Ernestine, Etta Jones. I would say those two were, I can say, my favorites. I can think right now. Of course, there was many good singers in New York when you were working at jam session. There was a lot of singers that you never even heard of. Mm-hmm. Which I can think of this one. I'm called it girl, but it was question mark whether she was a girl or boy. Stephanie Crawford. She sang in a low voice, and some people say it was a guy from the beginning. Maybe I don't care. She was singing great, and but she was working somewhere in a supermarket or some other place. But she was really singing beautiful jazz. I could tell you she was just as good as this Samara. Yeah. I could
Well, a
tell
lot
you.
of people don't.
Later on, she moved to Paris, and she was very successful for a while in Paris. I remember I was visiting Paris, playing gigs, and she was in Paris, and I played a couple of tunes with her. She came and sat in. But like I said, she may have been a trans. I was not like Jimmy Scott. We never really knew whether he was a woman or maybe both. Because he was singing very high.
Yeah, he had a high voice for sure.
A very high pitched voice, and he had kind of breasts, and his form was kind of feminine. But he was called himself Jimmy and everything. So why do we care? I don't care one way or another. It's not my. But it was question mark. Let's say it like this. My problem with him was not his gender, but the fact that he didn't want to pay. That was my problem with him, because he sometimes would come up with some last minute gigs, and I had a small child, and I needed to pay for the babysitter, and he wouldn't come up with money. So I had to quit, because he was very tight with money.
Yeah, that's not good.
He was promising sometimes things. We went on the road. He would promise single rooms, but he wouldn't do it. Then he would say, "Oh, it's okay. You can go to a restaurant and have anything on me." And then he wouldn't pay. And luckily, so if you were stupid enough to give your credit card, that would be it, and he would never repay you. It's like one of those people, like we talked about Art Blakey before. It was one of those people.
Yeah.
Try to squeeze every dime, and but I enjoyed my time with him. For the musical reason, I really liked him very much. I heard him first time on the I knew who he was, but before he was coming back, I saw by accident on some obscure channel on TV. I saw him coming back, and he was talking about his new album. He sang a couple of tunes, and the new album was like Johnny Mandel arranged it, and he had people like Kenny Barron and Ron Carter, Grady Tate, and David Fathead Newman playing horn. And so all those people, I said, wow. And I went out and I bought this record, and I said, I can play for this guy. I know how to play for him. So like maybe a year later or so, some months later, maybe I was in Sweden playing a festival in Stockholm, and he was playing the same festival. They were going after us. I was playing with Swedish musicians. And so he was there listening, and he had some nice things to say about what we played, and I told him, listen, I really love the way you sing, and I know how to play for you. I would be good for you. Okay? So, but that was that, So I was all summer in Europe, and then when I come back to New York, there was like 25 messages on my machine, which started like his manager calling. He said, "Vladimir, please give us a call." Then maybe like gradually, "We're looking for you. Are you here?" Then, "Please give us a call." Blah blah blah. So I said, "What is the matter? I'm calling him." They have some gig in Canada, and they have no pianist, and so that's the way it started. And then they gave me some tapes. They had some Japanese guy playing for him, and I didn't like it because they didn't tell him anything. They had him giving me some tapes from the way he was playing with Jimmy. So I had to learn. I had to learn his stuff from the tapes. And he was giving me those tapes, and he was thinking I'm just subbing for him for a while. Meanwhile, they decided already to let him go. So I already had my doubts about this whole gig because, I mean, if they can do it to him, why couldn't they do it to me? I didn't like the way because it was not straightforward. I'm sure he was very disappointed. I didn't see him anymore, but he was a good player too, good pianist. Anyway, so that's the way it goes. Maybe he asked for too much money. Well, he asked for his money. Yeah. He made the mistake of asking for the. I made the mistake asking for the raise.
Yeah, that was.
You want me to go in the last minute? You have to pay for my babysitter.
Yeah.
But the gigs we had at Tavern on the Green was right by where I live. That's where I met Madonna and all these people from 60 Minutes, CBS. They used to come, and lots of celebrities came to because he's like a midget dwarf kind of person who not singing well, but it's interesting, unusual attraction.
Yeah.
And so lots of people not only attracted to his singing style, but this whole thing it's attractive. And plus he's a veteran of many like Lionel Hampton band and everything, so he was like making a comeback. But New York Times had written a review of our playing in Tavern on the Green, and they said in an article that I was the best accompanist for Jimmy Scott in 25 years. So that was something.
That's a big compliment, yeah.
Yeah, that was something, I mean, I couldn't take it to the bank, but I was proud.
Yeah.
But I knew it was deserved because I worked hard on knowing all his tunes and knowing just what to play. At this point of the game, it was kind of my later period in New York. So at that point, I already played for many singers because I'm emphasizing this not because of ego, but because I was not good accompanist when I was younger. That was my weaker point. I was always swift soloist. I could always play hot stuff. But when it came to knowing lots of songs in different keys and subduing myself and playing just what's needed, I had to learn that. I had a great respect for people who could do that, who was a good accompanist. That to me, that was much more important to be a good musician. That being a virtuoso. So I had to work on that.
To really be able to play and support the people that are,
I was very jealous. Sometimes I would see the guy who, in my opinion, was not a good pianist. But then he would play just the right thing for the singer, and they were very happy. Mm-hmm. And I'm saying, damn it, I should work. I mean, I want to be like this guy. I want to do my thing, but I also want to do it the way he made everybody happy.
Right. Because
he just played the right thing at the right time. It didn't require a lot of technique, just required good taste and knowledge, good. Of course, they were much more experienced than I was.
Right.
But so that was my weak point. That's why I'm emphasizing this now, because now when I'm playing for the singers, I'm very happy because I know what to do, and I know, most importantly, I know what not to do. What to leave out.
Not to leave out, not to step on everybody, or if someone's taking a solo, not to.
It's so important, because lots of time people, it goes for horn players too. They want somebody who gives them support. They don't care if you don't play super fantastic solos.
Right.
Of course, it's always a plus if you have a good soloist as well. But mostly they want to have somebody who's in the rhythm section that gives the support, and if it's jam session, somebody who knows the repertoire and can play for the singers. I think it's still, well, now it's a lot easier, because when people now in jam session, we talked about that. Some people come on jam session and they say they want to sing so and so. The people go for their phone or their iPad, and everything is hunky dory. They may not play the best changes, they may not play the best things, but at least they can get through without being embarrassed. But in the old days, I liked it better, because they were embarrassed.
Right.
As I was embarrassed quite a few times, because the singer would just start singing and I would have to look for the key, because they didn't even know what the hell key they are in.
Yeah.
Like they still don't know. Many people still don't know. They are guessing. Now we have a new generation of singers that are coming from schools, so they have everything set up. Blah blah. They even have music for everything, whatever. They take a real book or whatever and they transpose it to their key. So they made it. They make it very easy even for the amateurs to follow them.
Yeah, and there.
I like the old way better, when they made it hard for you.
Yeah, yeah. There's some interesting singers now that are doing. I think we talked a little bit about this last time, but they can sing the Charlie Parker solo. And I mean, perfect. So they can listen to the Charlie Parker solo and they can sing it.
Yeah,
which is I think that's like a new thing that's becoming popular. But
well, it's been happening all along. Just think about Annie Rose and all those people.
Yeah. But this is a little bit more. It's extensive. In other words, they're doing like longer solos that, versus just
Listen, Matthew. For example, what Annie Rose did, it's so much more valuable, because she would take a solo and John Hendricks too, and they would come with a story that would fit the solo.
Right.
Just think about that. The story that would make sense, and also the words would fit the notes.
Yeah.
Just think how difficult that is.
Yeah. Exactly.
Eddie Jefferson, he used to do that too.
Yeah. There's not many that did that well. There's not many that did it well.
Oh, he did it so well.
Yeah.
He was not really a singer. He didn't have this singing voice, but he was swinging, and of course he didn't do the complicated, as you said, the complicated Charlie Parker and whatever Coltrane, multi-notes solos. That would be very difficult to to put any lyrics to that.
Right.
But they did it great, because it was very. It's interesting. It was entertaining at the same time.
Right.
Because like even the guys that play with, I mean, when the Hendrix, Lambert and Rose, when they did Basie album, the guys from the Basie band, they said, I never thought of that. There's a story behind the solos, that they wrote lyrics, and said the guy who played solo, he never thought that,
Right.
his solo would mean something to regular people, So that's a really art in itself.
Yeah,
it's not just shooby-dooby.
Right.
But we talked last time about some scat singing. One of the fantastic scat singing was done by Dizzy.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
If you see him doing "Oh Shooby-Doo," him and James Moody, they could do some fantastic scat.
Yeah. Yep.
Really do all those things, improvise with, not with words, but just with sounds.
Yeah, I think
with all the instruments. So that's super fantastic.
Yeah, they grabbed that from Louis Armstrong, who I think pretty much started that back in when he did the Hot Fives and Hot Sevens, and he did that stuff. But
when he forgot the lyrics.
Yeah, and then but he made
that's
it sound
how jazz started. Somebody goofed.
Yeah.
Yeah, somebody didn't remember the melody. I remember reading from somebody, it could have been Charlie Parker. They're saying, "Oh, well, the way he played like let's say Stardust, the way he played it, he made some fantastic masterpiece of that melody." And the guy said, "All I did was trying to remember how it went."
Yeah, yeah, yep. Came up with something new, genius.
A genius, just because he didn't remember how it went. Once he learned it, he was no longer a genius.
Are there any particular new artists that you listen to regularly? Any new jazz artists that you regularly follow that you like?
New jazz artists? No,
Any-
no. I listen to Art Tatum.
Art Tatum.
That's a new jazz artist to you. I listen to Tommy Flanagan. I listen to Ahmad Jamal.
But like, you still listening to the new Charles Lloyd stuff, or any of these guys that are putting stuff
What they're
out?
doing now?
Yeah, like
No.
the album back
No,
behind
I
me
think
there.
that-
You could see there's the new album. My fingers on back here. It was very good. The Charles Lloyd, The Sky will be there tomorrow. It's a new one. It's got Jason Moran, Larry Grenadier is on there, and Brian Blade. A very good record.
I heard last summer. I heard Charles Lloyd at the festival. Amazingly, he still sounds the same. He even played Forest Flower. It was almost like the record. It's
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah.
The man must be almost 90. I don't know what.
I think so. Yeah.
Well, it sounds just a record, just like a record. Really. I mean, they played some horrible shit that sound like World War III, when I came in. But then he changed and he played Forest Flower. And I said, well, this sounds just like the record. Incredible. He just had the same sound. Of course, I was far away. It was like an outdoor festival.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they play some strange things, but he can go back to original things. Of course, when he was playing, as we recall from our first interview,
Yeah.
at that time, lots of people were accusing him of copying Coltrane and stuff like this. But now, when everybody is gone, he's kind of more. His stuff is like more valuable.
Yeah, he's a legend for sure.
Yeah,
he's a
I mean, if you survive, you become from copycat, you become a legend in your own right, because the people don't even remember anymore the original anymore.
Yeah, well, those are big albums that he did back then. The Forest Flower and the those
Sure.
yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. But then
It's another guy that I had a dubious pleasure to know, George Avakian, who was his
producer.
Yeah, I had a. I don't know if I told you the story. There was at the time I used to work quite a bit with Mel Lewis, the drummer.
Mm-hmm.
And so finally, I heard on the grapevine there was this is a time when I think that Soviet Union was just about was kaput, was just about ending, and there was like a new thing, but was still maybe Soviet Union. But anyway, the band from Moscow, still maybe in Soviet time, was coming to New York. And what George Avakian was involved in that, because he came a few times to the Estonian festival, and maybe in Moscow too. So he was like a link between the Russian guys and American guys. So anyway, there was at the village gate. They organized a meeting with like a American Soviet summit. So Mel's band, well, Mel was the leader. Mel's band was supposed to organize some people who, the American guys who went to Soviet Union. So he had Jimmy Napper and Jerry Dudgeon and Bill Crow on bass, his old buddy from Jerry Mulligan band. And so they wanted the piano player who went to Russia. So Roland Hanna went to Russia with Ted Jasmine Lewis band, and then they tried for Billy Taylor, they tried for Dick Hyman, and none were available. So Mel said to George Avakian, call Vladimir. So he called me, and he was trying to come up with some Mickey Mouse money, and I said no, I held my own. He was trying to be kind of cheap.
They had all the money.
time because I wanted to do it,
Yeah.
but I didn't want to let him know that I want to do it. I said no, I wanted my $100 and that's it. He was trying to give me like 70 or something. I said no, 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 it's not.
Really, a big company like he's Columbia.
I know, but it's
Right?
not. It was not company. It was his. It was his private. I guess. They arranged it. Arranged this meeting
Oh.
between the Russian musicians. I don't know who. I don't know who sponsored that. But anyway, he was. I don't know if he sponsored that. I don't know. But he was trying to pay as little as possible. So I don't know if it was 70 or maybe he was going to pay 100 and I wanted 200, something like this, Anyway, it was not a big deal. Maybe I wanted 125 or 150. The number is immaterial. It's just he was trying to be cheap with me. But I said, no, I know. So he called me back. He said, okay. I knew I had him over the barrel because they couldn't find anybody on such short notice. So anyway, we're doing this concert and we're playing first tune was the blues, and and I played the solo, hot solo, and Mel gets on the mic. There was a lot of people from Russian embassy, lots of people that came in, and Mel gets on the mic and and he gives me this big build up, and he said, Vladimir, I met him in Leningrad when we were on the tour with Ted John Smith Lewis, and now he grew up to be one of the best pianists in the New York City, and you hear him now how he can play blues, and everybody gets me big hand and stuff like this. I was on the seventh heaven. So our set was over, and I think we played after the Russians. So they were from Moscow. I didn't know personally any of them. So I went to see it. I was very glad. I went to say hello to them, and they wouldn't talk to me.
Really?
No, they were looking, they say hi, kind of like hello. You know how the people say,
Yeah.
nice to see you.
That's strange.
Nice to see you. They couldn't. Soviet times, they probably had somebody with them that was watching over them. But the bass player, somehow he got off from that table and he caught with me. He caught with me later on the way, and he said, "Let's meet. I want to talk to you." So I took him to one of these Italian espresso places, and we had nice talk. He was the only one who wanted to speak with me. And then later on, when I went to Moscow to play, he came to visit me, and I went to his house. He was living far away from the Moscow, somewhere outskirts, and we played at his house, and he was a very nice guy. But I knew him. His name, I was familiar with because they were all famous musicians in Moscow. So I knew them by reputation, by the name. But they wouldn't talk to me. Can you believe this?
Yeah.
My countrymen. I was so disappointed that I was so proud. Here they are. They're coming to New York, and who else is playing with New York band with the top musicians but their countryman Vladimir? They should have been proud of me.
Yeah.
Now this guy who we didn't maybe even know him in Russia, but now he made it in New York and plays with great musicians, and they wouldn't say anything to me.
Yeah, that's strange.
Yeah, so that was the times, political times that luckily I think it's changed, but the time was.
Was that recorded? Did the vacuum record that?
Not to my knowledge.
Huh.
If it was, then I didn't get paid for that. We did two concerts. One was in the daytime and one was in the evening. The evening one got more people. There was a lot of big crowd. It was the Village Vanguard. It was like downstairs where they had bands. I used to play at Village Gate a lot, but it was on the street level. They have this piano bass duo usually going. Later on trios, also drums, and jam sessions sometimes too. Village Gate, of course. Mm-hmm. It's one of the oldest clubs.
Yeah.
In New York, yeah. So now it's a Duane Reade.
It's a what?
It's a drugstore, Duane Reade.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I went there. It's on Bleecker Street. I went by. It's a big drugstore.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
What a
so
shame.
I said, "Sic transit gloriam onde," It's how the mighty has fallen. You know, it
Yeah.
was fantastic place. All kinds of great piano players played there on the street level. You could hear it. You could see them. You could hear from the street. They were right. You know, the piano was right near the glass door, so you could see what's going on. And then they had no charge, so you could go there, and there was a good. You could go up the stairs, and you could stand there, and you could even see. You could even see the piano player's hands.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
That's
but
kind of
it
nice.
was kind of place, you know, people coming. In a way, it was good because you didn't have to pay. But in a way, it was bad because lots of people were coming through. Like it was coming and going. It was, in a way, like railroad station in a way because
Someone's paying
people.
attention. Yeah.
Yeah, there were lots of people were just passing, and they would have people like Flanagan playing or Ray Bryant or some other people, you know, because it was still on the circle of, you know, at the time. At the time, they had like 5 or 6 clubs for piano bass, basically. You know, it was a circle, which Bradley's was the best and most prestigious. I mean, for musicians, most prestigious ones. On the university place, Bradley's was on the one side and Knickerbocker was on the other side, and so they had top pianists playing in both of them. So when I was visiting, I was just running from one to another. You know, it was like God is playing in one and Jesus Christ was playing in the other one. So you try to catch both of them.
Legends. Yeah.
Legends, you know, Hank Jones would be at the Bradleys and Flanagan would be playing on the other side of the street. You know,
Wow.
and yeah. So, and then they had Zeno's and, like I said, Village Gate and Green Street. And so they had like maybe around five places, and in Knickerbocker, I auditioned. Roland Hanna, who was a good friend of mine, he introduced me to the owner. But the owner, I don't know if he already decided to hire me, but he wanted to hear me play, so he gave me the appointment and he auditioned me. He asked me some tunes that I was lucky enough to know, because he asked for some little bit obscure Irving Berlin tunes, and I remember he asked, "Do you know this one? Do you know that one?" He was like a old cat who knew a lot of old tunes. You know, they all were like this. You know, so luckily I knew, so I could play, and he was happy, and so he hired me. Lots of piano players didn't like that. I remember I got some remarks from
Some people.
some musicians. They said, "Oh, I've been in New York for 20 years and I never played in Knickerbocker. So I said, what do you want me to do?"
Yep.
Some other guy said, "How did you get it?"
Yeah.
I said, "I don't know. I auditioned and he liked me, so that was it."
Do you have any unreleased live recordings? Do you have for over the years? Do you have any of those? Any live recordings of you playing?
You know, I had quite a few, but as I said, my previous studio I lost in the fire, so I lost lots of material that way. Yeah. I had also lots of tapes from Bradley's that I recorded myself.
They're all gone.
Lots of. I actually have, still have on the cassette a couple of things from Bradley's with Flanagan. And 2 nights with Flanagan and Mraz, I have digitally, I have on my computer. Because one guy, Finnish guy who was a student of mine, he came to New York, visit me, and we went to Bradley's when Tommy Flanagan and George Mraz were playing, and he recorded 2 nights. And later on, he put it on the digital, he put it on a CD. So he sent me, and so I have it on my computer now. The fidelity is low, but you can hear everything. You know, I'm thinking maybe somebody one day will be really interested. Maybe you can even put it out, because the music is great.
Yeah, I wonder, like, yeah, because
There's a lot of background noise, though, because Bradley, in particularly early sets, the Bradley's was kind of noisy.
yeah, they might be able to take a lot of that out
Yeah,
now with
I'm
the.
thinking with today's, but I mean, it's not very commercial. Tommy Flanagan has many records. I don't know if it's really commercial, and I don't know who you need to square it with, who you need to pay for that to be released. Of course, he died and his wife died. I don't know if he's got any. I don't think they had any children, so I don't know if there's any
Yeah.
estate.
There's a couple of companies that do that. You know, I've had on the channel Corey Weeds that owns Cellar Music. He does those kind of releases.
Music, the Canada.
Yeah, he does the reel-to-reel releases of those kinds of things. So he might be one to get in touch with. He's looking for stuff like that. But
yeah, well, really, not my thing really. But I'm just thinking, it's not even about money. It's like, you know, I mean, like I'm always looking for some unreleased things.
Yeah. He goes through all that.
You know, there is I don't know if you know that. There is I don't know how much you are. Are you very much checking other channels on YouTube?
So yeah, I mean some, yeah. But
Do you know this vintage music channel?
I don't know. There's so many of them now. I don't.
Okay, no, there's not so many. But he's got a lot of good things, and
I do think I know who you're talking about.
It's called the channel called Vintage.
What's the guy's name that does it?
I don't know his name, but I think he's a Russian guy because.
Yeah, I think I know who you're talking about. Yes, I think I've seen that.
I think he transforms stuff from cassettes.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
I think it's strictly non-commercial. He puts it out.
Yeah.
With the clubs, with lots of noise, background noise stuff. But sometimes it's really great music. You have to. It's for somebody like me. You know, I grew up with listening to the shortwave radio with jamming,
right,
and everything, and trying to. So I'm not bothered by low fidelity.
Right.
If I can hear clearly the music, even with the background noise, it's okay if it's valuable enough.
Right.
So he's got all kinds of stuff. So not all great, but some of the things he's got are very good. Has been valuable to me because it's kind of like memories from New York Times and all this. Yeah, you can't get these things anymore.
Yeah, that might be something to look at getting put out because those companies that do that, like Corey Weeds, he'll go through all the legal stuff and find out how to get it released and all that kind of stuff. So that would be really, that stuff's always really neat.
He's a good contact anyway. He's a saxophone player, right?
Yeah, and he owns a record label
as well, and I think he's booking some people from New York to come to. Is it Toronto or Vancouver or where?
Vancouver.
Yeah. They got some club that people coming and playing there.
Yeah, Frankie's up in Vancouver is the big place.
He's a good player, but I don't see on his label anybody really interesting.
Oh really? Yeah, there's a lot of good ones. I really enjoy it.
Yeah,
there's a lot of straight ahead. Eric Alexander's new one's fantastic.
Yeah, but I mean, you're talking about living guys that are active. Eric Alexander, he's got other records as well, so he's living guys.
Oh yeah, the old stuff he put out, Shelly Man. He did a Shelly Man release of the old ones.
Okay, that sounds more interesting.
Charles Tolliver, he did one of those.
Did he do that?
Yeah, so he does some of those. Not as many of those.
Okay.
But yes, he will do those. So there might be some, something.
Charles Tolliver, I used to be very much into his music. I loved his quartets with John Hicks and Stanley Cowell. I used to study that. My friend, the trumpet player in Finland, he was very much into this stuff. We played some of that music.
Mm-hmm.
Charles Tolliver.
I think he did a Lockjaw Davis one. I think
okay.
So he's done. He doesn't do a lot of them, but when someone gives him something like that, then he'll do them. So
not really my thing, but something to be. I'm thinking about that because and I just recently I came up on the cassette from one very good night at Bradley's. Actually, Tete Montolio was there. It was like a summertime. They had Newport Festival, and I think Tete was a part of that. And he came to listen to Tommy Flanagan. And so I have a tape of that, so that didn't get destroyed.
Yeah.
But I don't have cassette machine either anymore. So yeah, but there's a lot of stuff still. I still have a lot of stuff in a cellar that I don't even know about.
Oh wow, you should go get it.
Yeah, because when we moved from city, when we moved here, lots of stuff was here in the old studio that I have. and so that got burned. But a lot of stuff that was still unpacked was still there. So I have some LPs there.
You need to go get them.
Maybe some first edition LPs, like original Blue Notes.
Yeah, you need to go get them. You need to get you a record player, Vladimir, and take them back out.
There's so much. There's so much stuff now to listen to on the internet, and not enough time to really listen to everything. I don't have that much time to, between practicing and taking care of family and stuff like this. I don't have that much time to listen to. I'm less crazy about listening to everybody as I was before. I'm just listening as we discussed, listening to basically the same things that I've listened through the years, and finding new and interesting things. Right now, just a couple of days ago, I was reminded of this concert recording that Benny Carter did with the American Jazz Orchestra. It's like a Central City Sketches or something like this.
I don't know if I know that one.
Yeah, it's great music. Ron Carter is on bass, and it's like top musicians in that band, and Mel Lewis playing drums. And I saw this interview with Kenny Washington, who's a good friend of mine, and he was talking about that that concert. And they recorded Benny Carter's music on the Music Masters, I think, label. So I listened to that. It's interesting, really. Benny Carter's a master musician, and he wrote everything and arranged everything. And a great band, of course, the top players.
Yeah. Well, let me know if you clean those out, and I'll pay for shipping. You can ship those records to me. So let me.
Yeah, I have. I don't know how many, but I know there are some.
Yeah. And I have
There's a lot of stuff there. It's all under dust. It's it may be even somewhere unpacked.
And then you're gonna have to send me an autograph of the new one that comes out.
But a majority of things I moved. The studio was like the same as I have here now, but it's like a how do you call it? It's not like warehouse, but some place where you keep
storage unit or whatever.
It's storage, yeah. So next door was storage, so I moved most of my collection there in the boxes. I had a lot of records, of course, because I had good setting with the record player and everything here. So I had a lot of records here, so I could easily access. But lots of stuff was there in storage, When I moved to New York, I had my collection. I left it with my friend because he had a lot of space. So I had hundreds and hundreds. A couple of thousands, I think, probably records, and so he had it. But then he had some problems with insurance, so he wanted to he said, you should come and collect it. So I came with this big car, and we packed everything. Yeah, I'm sorry if he had it. They would still be intact if we didn't move it from him. Yeah. Because he took really good care, they were all in good condition, all good. I didn't want to move them actually because I didn't need all that stuff. At that point, I already bought so many new records in New York. I had so many CDs. At that time, there was no CDs, but I started buying CDs, so I had a lot of CDs and still bought a lot of new LPs and stuff like this. So I had a lot. I didn't need that, but he was calling me and said, I have problems with insurance, so you better pick it up. And
that's terrible.
So I had to find a space for them and all that. Well, you know how it is.
Yeah.
When you collect things, the stuff begins to push you out of the.
Every time I go to the record store, I've managed to find something that I have to have.
You're not married, are you?
No. No, good.
So you see, my wife was giving me hell. So how many more records do you need?
Yeah, everybody, all my married friends always
You
tell
better
me,
listen. Yeah, you better listen to the stuff you already have.
yeah,
It's like with books, the same stuff. It's like we don't need any more anymore. You better read the same. You better read what you have, because I'm still finding some movies, for instance, that I didn't open.
oh, really? Yeah,
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 but when you're collecting, like I collect films also.
okay,
So my film collection, actually DVD collection, and now Blu-ray, that was impact because it was in another house. Of course, the big portion of us also was in that house. So because I was watching the movies, so lots of movies also gone. But still, the bulk of collection is still there in the big house. So they still okay. But again, basically all the movies. I had to buy a new one because they all came out on the Blu-ray with the extra material,
right, yeah,
so I needed to have all that. So all these DVDs, you cancel that because unless there's some films that
can't
never
get,
came out on Blu-ray. But now they have all these things coming with 4Ks. So people buying again the same films.
yep. Same thing
You
with
know,
records, new
so,
remastered with new
but the music
tracks.
is still, yeah, but the music or a film is still the same.
Yeah,
If you get basically the essence, I know I'm talking to the wrong person because you're a collector.
yeah,
I cannot talk to I cannot talk sense to you. But but when I was in Tokyo and cool Stratton is $2,000 or euro or whatever it is, 2,000 cool Stratton. I saw it with my own eyes.
so what is it? It's a movie?
No,
What
no,
is it?
cool Stratton was Sonny Clark record for Blue
Oh,
Note.
oh, cool. Okay, I didn't. Okay, it was going for
I'm
$2,000,
sorry, my pronunciation may not be perfect.
but that's
Cool Stratton.
yeah,
Sonny Clark with Art Farmer, Jackie McLean, and Philly Joe and Paul Chambers. So that record, with the woman's beautiful legs,
yeah,
and
2,000. Yeah,
so 2000, and it's the same music whether you listen to it on the digital and in the internet, on CD, or a Japanese copy of Blue Note, or French copy of Blue Note, or original Blue Note. It's still the same. It's not. It's like a film. The story is not going to end differently
right.
just because you bought the 4K film.
Yeah,
People say, okay, maybe it's going to have different ending. Maybe he survives.
yeah,
No, it's the same. The notes are still the same. You can hear maybe bass a little bit more clearly, maybe, I don't know. But with digital, I remember when CDs start coming, I was able to hear uh, bass lines on Blue Note records more clearly. I said, "Wow, great! I need to buy more of that because I can hear music more clearly
right.
with digital. You use some of the warmth
Right.
of quality from LP, but you gain
Some clarity
in
on certain things.
exactness of notes. It comes more prominent. So if you're a student of music, as I am, then you want to hear more clearly what the bass player, for instance, is playing. So that's how lots of people now they transcribe solos. They put it through computers. They can hear a lot of stuff now. It's more easily transcribed. They put it digitally through computers and stuff like this. In in old days, you had to do it all. We had to do it all with our ears.
Yep. Yeah.
Sometimes you had to slow it down another speed, or with the bass. If you needed to hear the bass notes, you needed to speed it up. So then it goes an octave higher. So you can hear it. You can hear it on the
Cut through.
on the discount high note level, like on guitar.
Yeah.
It sounds almost like a guitar. So every note is more clear. And because we didn't have that digital system now, which keeps, if you change the speed, it still keeps the same
Right.
pitch.
Yeah. Which. Yeah.
But in our days, if you change it, the pitch is changing, like going fourth down or fourth up. So then you need to you do it hard way. You need to transpose it again to learn
Right.
how it goes. That's how it goes, you know.
Yeah.
But I'm not sorry we did that, you know. I'm wondering if people are doing it so easy now through the computers, how much they retain from that.
Yeah. I don't know.
Maybe a lot, maybe not so much. I don't know. Depends. Because on YouTube, you watch lots of people are publishing now a bunch of very complicated, like saxophone, Charlie Parker solos or Coltrane solos or everything. Yeah, but nobody plays like Coltrane, and no one plays like Charlie Parker. So
Right.
I'm still waiting for somebody to play like Charlie Parker.
Yeah. Well, he's the standard, right? Everybody I've had on, Eric Alexander, the same thing. You can listen to Charlie Parker and never get to the end, right?
Yes. Well, he's the one of the more prominent one, but he mixes his influences a lot. He used to play exactly like George Coleman.
That's where you learn from. So yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, he learned from, but he really played like him. I mean, tried. Of course, nobody plays like George Coleman. But talking about that, it's a wonderful record because I mentioned Tete Montoliu. I hope you remember that name.
Yes. Yep. I'll be going.
It's a wonderful record of just him and George Coleman. Dynamic duo.
Oh, okay. I'll have to put that on my list.
Wonderful record. Just recently, I've been listening to it again. There are some original tunes that I'm not so crazy about, but they do Sophisticated Lady and they do Jobim's Meditation. Those are fantastic. I mean, they just have so fantastic ears. Tete is catching everything that George. You know, they were playing in London, and actually, my wife heard them. She went to Ronnie Scott and she heard Tete in person. Anyway, so they didn't like the English rhythm section, so they decided for record session to dispense with rhythm section and just
Really?
play two. Yeah, so they just did this duo album. I remember getting it because I was so crazy about both of them. I just loved George Coleman so much, and I loved Tete. So I said, "Oh, I need to hear that." And just about the same time this record came out, Mercer Ellington came to town, and Mulgrew came to visit me. I just met him, and I invited him and saxophone player from the Mercer's band to my house, and you know I cooked the dinner for them. And we had this. I had a bunch of new records that I used to mail order, because in Helsinki at the time we didn't have all that much, But I found this company from Germany. I think it's kind of was connected to ECM. It was called Jazz by Post, and they had a lot of. They had basically all new records. Lots of Japanese. It attracted to me first because I noticed they have a lot of Japanese releases. At the time, lots of people that I loved couldn't get arrested in States.
Yeah.
All those guys like Hank Jones and Art Farmer, they were not recording mainstream musicians in States. It was the time of Weather Report and Return to Forever and all those things. And small companies like Muse may have recorded some things like this, like on cheap. But basically, some European companies was recording what we called straight ahead jazz, but Japanese. There was a company. Just a minute. I don't have any more original records, but I have some on CD. East Wind. I don't know if you know.
East Wind. Huh. No, I don't think I've seen those.
Oh, okay. Let's see. This is fantastic record. Okay. Art Farmer Quintet at Boomers. Okay, that's one. Art Farmer with Cedar Walton Trio. Yesterday's Thoughts. And Cedar Walton Pete In.
I've seen that one. Yeah.
The best record Cedar Walton ever did. So all those things came almost at once, at the same time. And I got their catalog. And they had also Hank Jones.
That was the Cedar
Sam
Walton.
Jones did his solo album. So they had a lot of things that interest me tremendously. And I realized that Japanese must have about the same taste as I do.
Yeah.
Because they were recording all those people. And so I got on the case, and I ordered all those things from Germany. And it was easy. You didn't need to, at that time, you didn't need to pay any tax or anything. You know, you didn't need.
Now it's crazy. The shipping's crazy on all this stuff now.
Yeah, I know. Now it's crazy, but it was unusual at the time. You know, I used to get those things in the mail like any letter. You know, just you get you get this delivered, or you get a note from the post office that you know your package has arrived, and then you went and picked it up. There was no hustle. Nobody was interested in that. So I used to order a lot of records that way, and so they came to me, and we had the dinner and the good Russian tea. My mother sent Malgro. He still remembered it now. God rest his soul. But he was still talking about it. About my mother made this beautiful jam, preserves, you know, with the strawberries and pears and apples and all kinds of things. So I served the Russian tea with my mother's jam, homemade, you know, cake and homemade stuff. So they were so happy because, you know, they're traveling. And so I know from my experience, when you go travel on the road, if you can land in somebody's house for a minute and listen to it and lay back. So I played all these new things. They were listening. I remember I had that Tete with George Coleman, and a new record, Eastern Rebellion, just came out. And then I had
great.
I had the steeplechase Hal Galper quintet with the Brecker Brothers. That was a new.
All great players there.
Great Brecker Brothers. They were playing straight ahead at that time. They were not playing fusion. Brecker Brothers. Billy Hart was on the drums, and Hal Galper and Wayne Dockery. All those guys I got to play with later on. I used to work with Wayne Dockery, and especially with Billy Hart many times. Yeah, but at the time I had no idea. If you would tell me, you could have knocked me with a feather if you would tell me that I'm going to play with all these guys. I would not believe you. You know. So anyway, we listened to all these new things, and they were digging. I remember like it was yesterday. You know, lots of musicians came to my house, and you know, I used to cook, and at least serve some coffee or tea or something like this. And Kenny Washington, I remember this when Griffin came. They came. And Johnny Griffin Quartet, they came to my house. And of course, at this time, I had already a big collection. And that's funny, because we started talking about this rhythm section that he was crazy almost about, as I was, about Wynton Kelly with Paul Chambers and Jimmy Cobb. So I had a special section with all the records all those guys are in. So I used to buy anything with Wynton Kelly, I would buy. So I'm showing this record to Kenny Washington, and I said, "Do you know this one?" Because I was pulling all the different records, and he said, "No." And I said quite innocently, I said, "You should have this one." And I noticed this guy in the Johnny Griffin band, those other guys, they were falling on the floor. Because Kenny Washington, he has got a reputation, you know, he's collected millions of records, and he always tells people, "You should check out this record. How come you don't know this record?" So now he's in this situation when I'm telling him, "How come you don't know? You should have that record if you're so crazy about this rhythm section." So these guys, they were laughing so hard that the teacher got caught. You know, Kenny Washington, he's very famous for having millions of records.
Does he have a lot of them? Yeah.
Oh man, he had a lot of them. He's got every record ever made, probably. You know, he used to go to Japan and come back with his bass drum filled with records and CDs and everything. You know, I run into him every time was in New York. Every time I'm in the record store, I'm running into Kenny Washington, buying some stuff. I mean, he never ending. As a matter of fact, some older musicians, they made fun of him because of that. I remember I had him on my gig, and Clifford Jordan said, "Well, did he bring his records to the gig?"
To the gig, that's funny.
Yeah, he was asking,
Yeah,
like it was not a cool thing to have too many records.
Hey, you can't have enough as far as I'm concerned.
I know, me too. I don't care, but I mean, like some people feel it's too much. It's like copying all other people too much. But he's crazy. He had this radio station called Jazz Maniac.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But he knows his stuff. I mean, he doesn't just collect. He knows things that he buys. I mean, up to the point, I guess. So many thousand records.
Yeah.
And he probably doesn't know every single tune on them. But yeah, so that's another funny story with when they came to Helsinki with Johnny Griffin. Check out my record collection. Yeah. Did I tell you the story about Lush Life with Cedar Walton?
I don't think so. I don't think you did.
Since you're collecting my stories.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that's how I embarrassed Cedar without this again. Another of my innocent. My innocent. I made a lot of stupid things. Well, not so stupid, but I mean, I didn't realize. Lots of times I would do something quite in earnest without thinking twice, putting the guy in a strange situation. So the Timeless All Stars. As I mentioned, I used to go to when any time a visiting band, particularly American band, would come to Helsinki, I would be at the airport meeting them, because the guys who used to bring the bands, they didn't particularly speak very good English, and they were not so savvy with saying the right things. I heard them sometimes say some things that almost insulting to the Afro-Americans, like calling them boys or stuff like this, without meaning anything bad. You boys want to have some. I'm not a boy, said one of the guys. But I'm a fellow. So don't you feel like a boy? No, I feel like a fellow. So they would get, sometimes would say wrong things in the wrong time. So anyway, they came, and this band, Timeless All Stars?
No, I don't think so.
So Timeless All Stars, they were, we're talking about Timeless Records, because this guy, Wim Vicht, he used to be a promoter in Holland, who used to tour bands, and finally, as a result, because he toured a lot of American bands, he started his record label, Timeless. And so you probably know. So this record, for example, Tete and George Coleman, it came on a Timeless record in Holland, and Eastern Rebellion. All of them before they all came on a Timeless record. So that's the name then, Timeless All Stars, because all those guys they recorded for Timeless label. So the band was Harold Land, Curtis Fuller, trombone, and Cedar, Bobby Hutcherson on vibes, Cedar Walton piano, Buster Williams, and Billy Higgins. Not too shabby, right? Pretty good band. So they coming, and this is like minibus. And Cedar, at that point, he knew me a little bit, but not that much. So I already met him and stuff like this, but he doesn't know that much about my playing and stuff like this. Not really. And he carries like this little keyboard with him for like composing and stuff. So we're in the bus, and it's a kind of fairly long trip from the airport to the city. So those are the guys sitting, there's nothing to do. And he hands me the keyboard and says, Vladimir, why don't you play Lush live? It's like a joke, right?
Yeah.
Now I realize it. But at the time, I was working a lot on Lush Live, so I mean, I had it under my fingers. So I'm taking this thing and I'm just playing it like it's nothing. And I see the expression on these people's faces. And you see that, you know, he thought I was going to be, no, not this time, sorry, blah, blah, blah. I said, okay, that's what you want to hear, that's what I'm going to do. And I didn't realize that I made any impression, except later on when they had sound check and they were playing some tune, and I asked Curtis Fuller, what was the tune that you played? Well, he said, it's tuned as so-and-so. But he said, but you probably play it better than us. So then I realized I made an impression without thinking about it, and at the same time embarrassed Sid a little bit.
That's funny.
How do you like that story?
Yeah, not even realizing it.
No, I had no idea. You know, just I took it earnest. He wanted to hear. It's like some guy, you know, let's play giant steps. Okay, let's go. Boom, boom, boom. You know, let's play Cherokee in B major. Fine, let's do it, because I'm doing it every day. You know, I was practicing all the time, and so everything was under my fingers. You know, just let's do it. And you know, so I don't know if I really embarrassed him, but I guess it made some kind of impression, because it's a tough song to play, particularly on a little keyboard.
Yeah,
like that.
exactly.
But I managed. You know, I don't remember how it sounded, but I guess everybody liked it, because they said later on that I possibly played better than they. So, what else you want to hear?
Well,
I'm telling you all my stories.
Oh,
I
that's
probably
great.
next time I had nothing to say.
Yeah. So what
I'm like this professor who knew 25 languages, but he had nothing to say.
Yeah. So when you go in a few weeks to record this new record, when is it? Did they tell you when it's going to come out? Is it Venus?
Oh no, they're not saying anything. They haven't said anything. No, I don't want to jinx anything. I'm not worried about when it's going to come out. I'm worried about when it's going to come in.
Yeah. Well, when you get one, I'll pay you for it. You got to send me a signed one when you get them.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Autographed.
Yeah, let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Yeah.
First, I need to record it.
Well, it sounds like it's going to be fun.
Let's not get ahead of it. It may still be disaster.
No, I'm sure it's not going to be a disaster.
No, I'm sure too, but who knows? You know, who knows? Before you have sometimes somebody said that Roy Eldridge. You said you either have a good date or you don't.
Yeah.
You know, you go to studio, there's no guarantees what's going to come out. I have 2 days, you know.
Oh, that's nice.
Sometimes I put everything on one date only, but
2 days is good though. So you record a whole bunch of pick all your favorite ones, right?
If it goes well, maybe I have enough for 2 CDs.
Right.
If, you know, knock on wood.
Yeah.
Without knowing it, I have certainly enough tunes. But, you know, what's going to happen inside the tune, that's another story.
Right.
But if it's good piano and I have good guys, and if I'm in a good shape, it's going to be fairly good result. I'm fairly acceptable.
Yeah.
I think. I'm not... The thing with me, you know, which is helping me, that I'm not striving to do something totally original and totally earth-shaking. And my goal is not to change jazz music. I love jazz music just the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I leave it alone, and I'm just trying to come to the level of jazz music instead of just trying to change it. You know.
Right. The traditional.
If I make myself
traditional
clear.
straight ahead jazz. Yeah.
No, I'm just thinking jazz is great. I need to come to level. I mean, who plays? I mean, they're trying to change jazz. I mean, who plays better than Charlie Parker? Who played better piano than Art Tatum? Who played better trumpet than Louis Armstrong? Nobody, you know. So don't tell me, you know, this is so old that we need to change it. No, you need to change. You need to come to that level, because that level is very high.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know, I think it's kind of stupid to say that we need to change And this is something that doesn't happen to the jazz, to the classical music. You know, people still know that no matter how well you play Bach and Beethoven and Mozart and whatever, Stravinsky, whatever you want to call, you know, the music is still better than anything you will play. The music will still be, you still have to strive to meet that level of the music, no matter how well you play.
Yeah.
Does it make any sense to you?
Yeah, the classic compositions, yeah. The Great American Songbook.
You have to worry about how well you play it. You don't need to worry about how to change it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just think about what would happen with classical music if all the pianists or violinists or cellists would have to compose their own music every time for their.
But there are some new composers now. There's been people have been composing new classical music for a long time now. Then they do all new stuff. But
forget about this new stuff. When I hear some modern classical compositions, I want to throw up.
Yeah,
You know, I mean, I'm thinking they probably some good composers somewhere. I think maybe some of the composers that are writing for movies, they could be sometimes good. Because I hear sometimes in the films, I hear sometimes very beautiful music and it's original. So maybe there are some talented people working in a movie industry or, you know, something like this. But of course, still not compared to Mozart or somebody like this, you know, or Tchaikovsky or some Rachmaninoff, some people with romantic, you know, beautiful music. How can you, you know, I'm completely crazy about Rachmaninoff. Nothing could be better than the Second Piano Concerto, even though it's so played so many over time, you know, but it's crazy beautiful. Rachmaninoff, I think he was on the same level as Beethoven and those guys. It's just, Russian music. It's more emotional. The German music a little bit more exact.
Yeah.
It's more read in. You know, of course, Bach was, but Russian music like Tchaikovsky, when you listen to some of his music, like ballet music, he was throwing the melodies like it was nothing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you listen to like overture, already there maybe 10 or 15 beautiful melodies that you can compose some pop tunes.
Yeah.
Like several pop tunes just taking from that.
Beethoven, a lot of that stuff is transformed into even heavy rock music is taken from Beethoven.
Sure.
Yeah.
You know, sure. They put a beat under it and it's fine. They're contemporary. It's contemporary as anything.
Yeah. Yep. All right, Vladimir. Well, I think we've had a great conversation. Yeah, I'm going to put this all up together, so I'm going to do one long one.
Oh, man. Don't put it out. I'm talking too much.
No, it'll be fantastic. People will love it. But I think instead of in the past where I've kind of made them smaller, I think I'm going to leave it all together because I think it's just people. It's easier to go just listen to it all in one big piece. And you can listen to a little bit at a time rather than chopping it up because then you miss some of the context of the conversation. So I think I'm going to make it all. It'll be like a 4-hour whatever.
Sometimes it ends abruptly.
Yeah, so I'm gonna just do it all together.
And then starts at some kind of that not logical.
Yeah.
If you haven't, you know, it's like a TV series. If you haven't watched the first part, and you come in on the second part, and you start wondering. Sometimes I do that. I said, this is probably not the first part. I'm missing something. I don't know why they're doing this now. I need to find out.
Yeah.
Turn out to be that they wrote part 1, but in fact it's a part 2.
Yeah. Yep. So I'll do this. This will be like 3.5 hours or whatever.
Listen, I'm so enjoying talking to you.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Always asking me the right questions and talking about some good musicians. You know that I had. Good fortune, actually, now that we mention all those records, I had a good fortune to meet and know them.
Yeah, it's incredible.
I met Toshiko quite a few times. And of course, Lou, I know. I'm still in contact with Lou on the Facebook. Sometimes we are meeting in Japan. He's touring in the same time as I am.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but he's going sometimes different route because he doesn't use the piano. So he's got the trio, so they can go to all kind of small places that don't have piano. And the bass player that worked with him, Russian bass player Boris Kozlov, I heard that he's very special guy. He's got all the train, everything is exact. He got all the train schedule, everything. So the Finnish gig, he knows how to go, where to go, and they're very mobile. So I guess they are not that expensive either, so because they played a lot of places that don't even have piano.
Yeah. Well, you got to make logistical changes nowadays in order to be able to make a living. Unfortunately, you probably can't do a big band like this anymore. There's a couple people doing it. Very difficult, though.
Oh, yes, very difficult. Yeah, it's a sad thing. I came up with the big bands, I was able to play with quite a few of them. Well, it was state supported in Russia. We had the city of Leningrad was full of dance orchestras that played jazz regularly as a first part, and then just dance music, but they were all playing jazz. So, and there was like 5 or 6 different places, and with the big orchestras, so you could get your. And then, of course, I was playing with some big bands on the road. So you can. It's nothing. You cannot compare this. You get a lot of camaraderie. You go through the traveling with the buses and trains and planes, and there's nothing. You listen to the same music. You're talking about the same things. After the gig, you get together and have some shots of vodka and listen to the new records, and digesting stuff and talking about music. It's nothing like this going on today.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember this one time we were on the road. I was with a kind of like rock band, but we were at the same time with the big band. And the drummer, whom the name I don't even recall, he loaned me some reel-to-reel recordings with Clifford Brown and Art Blakey, live at Birdland. I never heard those things. And live at Birdland with Clifford Brown and Lou Donaldson, Horace Silver. And Art Blakey with the Café Bohemia with Kenny Dorham and Hank Mobley and Horace Silver. When I heard those things, I said, what am I doing playing this bullshit? This is the music I need to be playing. This is, even though I couldn't, but I realized these are my roots. I needed to get to that, So if we were on touring, I probably would never heard this music.
Wow, that's incredible. Yeah.
So people at those days, they were traveling with the big tape recorders, reel-to-reels, and everybody was listening like crazy. Plus the radio with Willis Conover's Voice of America. He did so much for us at the East Bloc, because you could get all the newest records and old records too. He was playing 6 nights a week, and I would always tape.
Yeah,
everything.
Tape it all.
Yeah, so that was important. And I had the luck then to meet him, and he had my first record, that Live with Groovy. He broadcasted that on the Voice of America when I already left Russia. So my Russian colleagues could hear it and say, "Wow, this guy is now in Finland, and he makes jazz records, and we can hear him on radio." Incredible.
Yeah, it is incredible.
When you think about that, because full circle for me, I grew up listening to that stuff, and now they played my records on that.
That's incredible.
Yeah. But anyway, I have talked too much.
Oh, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it as always.
I filled it up for the whole year now. You don't need to hear me until the next year.
I enjoyed it, Vladimir, as always. We'll do it. We'll definitely have to do it again.
As you notice, I hate telling the stories and I hate talking. This is not my thing. I never like to talk about myself. So. Well,
when you get done, when you do the recording date, let me know and we'll get back on and we'll talk about it.
What happened? Yeah. Unless I'm really embarrassed, then that's forget about it.
All right, I'm gonna hit stop here. Thank you, Vladimir.
Thank you.